Are we ready?
I do already.
Okay, let's call the select board meeting to order for Monday, September 23 at 6:04. Okay, review agenda for additions, removal, or adjustments of any items. Anything, Val?
No minutes to review tonight, with apologies.
Okay, overview Zoom meeting operations. Mute your microphone. Don't speak until you're recognized by the chair or someone on the board. Public forum. Anybody got anything they'd like to say that about 5 minutes that's not currently on the agenda?
There's one more farmer's market left. There's this evening's farmer's market, and there's one more next Monday, and that's the last one for the season.
Oh. Haven't made it down there yet, because every time I go by, it's
You got one more-
meeting.
you got one more
Select
chance.
board meeting. Okay, department head roundtable. Sharon.
Oh, this week we'll be working on getting tax bills ready to go out. We're doing a water read, we're behind. We found out last week that EJ Prescott is not gonna support our software, or they don't sell census meters anymore. So we're trying to work through this. Luckily, the new vendor down in Massachusetts called because we had an issue the other day with our handheld. So that's going on.
So we may be buying something newer sooner than we planned.
I hope not, because that's a new handheld, so hopefully not. And election stuff is going on. I don't think the ballots for the town of Bristol have been completely mailed out yet, so we're still getting requests, and it's like, you gotta be patient, the state's mailing them out. But it hasn't indicated in my system that anybody's got them yet, so that's out there.
And that's for the usual is that if you want to vote on the day, you're bringing that ballot in.
And if you don't, you have to sign an affidavit saying you haven't already voted before
Okay.
you can get another one.
So when you get yours in the mail, if you want to come in, bring it with you.
But they're only getting they're not getting the local stuff that we have to vote in the mail, right?
Just the federal.
Right.
It's not even supposed to.
So then what will happen with the local stuff? They either have to come in or you mail them later?
Yeah, or request them after they're available.
Okay.
They're getting federal and state.
They're getting the federal state one.
Edit?
Yes.
Chris?
This week's got a couple meetings, one with National Bank of Middlebury to look at, one of the things we discovered. The training we just did was a better way to protect our monies that are beyond the $250,000 FDIC level. So we're meeting with National Bank of Middlebury on Wednesday to make sure that's done. I've got a meeting tomorrow with Katie, remember her last name, from Vermont League of Buckley, to figure out our ARPA funds. And so we'll have more to report at the next meeting on that one.
We need to commit, right?
Yes.
And what that means and because if not, there's payback.
Apparently,
We're not paying back. We're not paying
Actual, literal payback.
Yeah.
allocations, the select board
Chris
votes
just
to
got a
allocate
bonus.
weren't enough.
Yeah, so I'll have more details tomorrow, exactly what needs to be done between now and rapidly approaching deadline. So
Right. Okay.
Get those done.
Good.
Meredith.
Hi, so Aiden started today, first day for our program coordinator. So that was exciting. We did a drive around. For Bristol Youth Sports Soccer, we have 170 kids on the field playing soccer. That's pretty cool. And just to follow up with Ian and the farmer's market, the last farmer's market is next Monday. We have worked with Lincoln Vineyard, to be able to have wine at the farmer's market. So the process was taken care of. Sharon got the permitting and approved it. And so Sarah, the farmer's market supervisor, and myself will set up the wine zone or the beer garden. There'll be an enter and exit one way. So we'll be managing that, and we'll have bracelets for the 21 and older crowd for that little beer garden. Talked to Bruce. Bruce was okay with it. So I just wanted to update the select board and let you all know that for the last farmer's market, there will be wine.
So. Anything else?
No, that's it. Just it's nice to have somebody else in the office with me.
Jill?
As Sharon shared, the water read last week became quite impossible. The instruments were not working correctly, they weren't charging correctly, and they weren't connecting to each other. So I was pretty delighted that our new service vendor was able to help get everything reconnected, and they finally charged properly to do a bit on Friday and then more again today. So I'll be continuing the water read through this week. Last week, the water sampling and the sewer sampling was done, and I hope to also sample 2 manholes north and south this week for sewer to kind of start getting an idea on the source of the fog, where it's
That's oils
coming
and
from.
grease.
Yep, fat
That's
oils
what-
and grease, kind of
That's
that
what I
high strength waste to kind of see which direction it's coming from. I have a hunch, but you know, science is better than hunches. So, and then there's everything else that's going on with kind of all of the impending projects. And we've got I want to say environmental firm that's going to be doing some geoprobes over the coming weeks. So they've got a desire to be in the field this week to decide where they're going to poke holes. And then I think the first week of October to actually poke the holes. So it would actually be the second week. I think it's like the 7th and 8th or the 8th and 9th. So that's kind of everything is progressing, and there's lots of little details along the way.
School Street?
Didn't do it. Decided
do it.
not to. Kind of think they're about to put new valves and new water lines along those corners, and it doesn't seem to make sense. Plus, there's some other intricacies with ownership of the line in question and a request to not touch it based on who owns it.
Gotcha.
So I've
I thought
decided.
Jill, I thought we were gonna put it off the Park Street line. We were gonna put a shut off there and not touch
Yeah.
that line.
Well, I decided over the weekend to not go there. I don't. I don't know. I'm thinking about everything that's going on with the water system and all of the costs, and it's like, I don't know, it's the cost effective part of me is just going, no, there's literally going to be brand new lines and brand new valves in here in 2 years. I don't, although it'd be nice to be able to shut it off if there was a problem. We could have a problem on any of the 1905 water lines over the coming years while we're waiting, and I don't want to just spend thousands of dollars putting valves in if I don't have to, if I know they're about to get replaced in just a couple years. I don't know, maybe my maybe my cheeks are squeaking. I just feel like trying to conserve, knowing that there could be other things that come up that cost more that we might need that for.
Jill, do you know if in the current design in that area, a valve is included to
I
be
was just-
installed anyway?
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah.
There is?
Yeah, there's a valve at every single corner, every intersection. The fact that there isn't one there right now makes 0 sense whatsoever. But no, I should have probably sent an email, but just kind of thought, you know what? Let's not start Monday this way.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Jill.
Is Bruce on?
He's not,
I can't see.
Nope.
not at the moment.
Okay. Regular business. Deputy Town Health Officer candidate, Grace Williams.
Yes, and just for background, I forwarded to the select board the information that Grace provided in addition to her email. So they have more of her background experience. And Grace is online to join us.
Hi, Grace. Good evening.
Hi,
So we'll
Sorry, I
start
don't
with
know
the
your name.
quest- We'll start with the question we always ask. Why would you like this position?
that is, how much time do you have?
Brief, be brief.
So my background is in emergency medicine, social services, public health, clinical research. I've done a lot of stuff. I can go on. And I want that because I think it's time for me to get back to Addison County. I have served a lot of important positions for Burlington area, and I see what needs to be done, except there are other barriers that are out of my control. So I am taking my skill sets back to Addison County. And unfortunately, you guys caught me when I happened to be in Montreal, but I can assure you that I'm very familiar with municipal operations. I'm the person in Regents that I go to for purchase policy, founding a new committee. Now I'm doing data analysis for the Regents Community Police Advisory Committee. I said I'm heading a subcommittee, really it's just me.
Me, myself, and I.
Okay.
Great.
And this would be for the deputy. It was originally discussed, I know it was like the main position, but then because Diane is still
Right,
in that main position,
correct.
it was sort of changed to deputy as a
Yep.
learning.
Which is a vacant position right now,
Yeah.
and it's actually a good opportunity for that kind of orientation.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you been in contact with Diane
Yes.
regarding this?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right, excellent. And then we don't actually make the decision, it's the Department of
Correct.
Health. Is that
You're
correct?
right. The
Okay.
select board would make that recommendation and forward that to the Department of Health, and they ultimately make the appointment.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Grace, do you have any questions or concerns for us?
I have a lot of questions, and I'm not sure if you can answer, since that's how I was educated. But how is Bristol's population number affecting the municipal operations? It's bigger. We don't have a lot of bigger towns in Addison County.
Well, Bristol is about 4,000,
Mhm.
plus or minus,
Mhm.
depending on where you look.
Mhm.
And it's growing slightly, slowly, but it is growing a little bit each year.
Mhm.
And in terms of municipal operations, we just keep on keeping on,
Mhm.
Yeah, we attempt to scale to need
right?
and demand.
Mhm.
Though I think this particular position hasn't
Mhm.
had a tremendous demand
Right.
over the
Mhm.
last number of years. I think there was
Mhm.
probably more during COVID.
Right.
But yeah, it's a fairly quiet position, but obviously
Yeah.
depending on the year.
It can change
Yeah.
on a
exactly.
dime.
I'm asking because even though Virgins only has 2,600 residents, we do serve the neighboring 5 towns.
Yeah.
That means there's a lot more community and outreach efforts in there. And a lot of times we have to think about our relationships with the neighboring towns and how could that benefit everybody when we are planning something new. And we are always planning something new. See, Virgins is not what it was 50 years ago.
Right.
Neither is Bristol, but.
Right.
Yeah. So I am just looking forward to get to know Bristol more than the shops. And
Although keep shopping.
I do have one question. As a select board, what is your proudest accomplishment?
Proudest accomplishment.
The board's proudest accomplishment?
Sure.
Or
Well,
your
there's 5
personal-
different people, so might have 5 different answers, or 4.
We keep coming back. That's good or bad, but.
Peak has been here for 75
Yeah.
years.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I think it changes per year. I mean,
Right.
I put together the town report, I have done for the last few years. And so just looking at the amount of things that we do as a board that the town does is quite remarkable. And even looking ahead, I mean, Valerie's been working on the capital improvement plan. That is a new thing that we're sort of putting together, have been putting together for the last couple of years. And just the sheer amount of things that we're tackling can be a little bit daunting, but I think we continue to move forward and continue to try to really push ourselves and try to accomplish as much as we can each year.
I would have to say, I think the staff that we've put together and their ability to work together and get stuff done, I think that's our biggest asset, is the fact that we've got strong people in key positions and we're able to keep the ship afloat and keep moving ahead.
They might
For
not
sure.
agree with you, but.
We're like any family. There are days where we don't see eye to eye, that's for sure. I'm not gonna say it's always
Roses
peaches and cream or, but for the most part, when something needs to be done, everybody buckles down and it gets done, so.
Well, and hopefully we're making decisions that are helping them and not hindering them.
That's Vermont in a nutshell. Just one more question. So what are going to be your expectations as a select board for the health officer?
I think right now it's a as needed position. It's not something where there's something going on every week.
Right.
It's when we receive a complaint or
And we may not even receive the complaint.
yeah,
We may not, as a select board, we may not even know until later on
Right.
that there's an issue.
In times past, the position has been largely responsive, reactionary to a situation that demands attention. I'm not aware of efforts in the past or any initiative for the health officer or the deputy health officer to be proactive, to reach out and develop community engagement around certain issues. For example, that COVID might have been an opportunity, but there are other things were going on with the different people involved. And so we haven't really talked about that or explored that as an option with either position, the health officer or the deputy health officer. So I think that might really depend on the individual initiative to see if that whoever's in the position is motivated and inspired to do that. But otherwise, that has not been an expectation.
Thank you for that.
just to put out the fires when they start.
Or you're lucky, my degree's in EMS. I'm trained by the best first responders in the state.
There we go. That's what we need.
Excellent.
So do we make a motion in terms of a recommendation, since we
If you're
can't
prepared
actually?
to,
Okay.
yes, that would be the thing.
I would make that motion. Recommendation for Grace Williams to be put into the deputy town health officer as a candidate.
I'd second that. Yeah, okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Excellent. Well, we'll forward that to the Department of Health, Grace, and I'm sure you and we will be hearing directly from them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Grace.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Montreal.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
It's funny, I never know where to look. I'm looking at my screen, there's that and there's that.
This is always at you, so you're fine.
Okay, review of Holly Hall Energy Efficiency Improvement Options for the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. Grant application, Asher Nelson, Vermont Integrated Architecture, and others will be here to present.
Here are the others.
I'm one of the others.
Well, I don't have the others' names on here, so.
And Asher is
Asher's on.
Hi, Asher.
Ashley's on.
How's everyone doing?
Are you,
And,
are you still on the committee?
No, I'm just here as an interested citizen.
Are you still with Efficiency Vermont?
Yes.
A knowledgeable,
Yeah.
interested citizen.
And Madison Shropshire is here from, I think she's on.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah,
She's
she is.
From the Regional Planning Commission as well, who's been really guiding us through this process, the application process, and how to scope the improvements, et cetera. So it's been really very helpful. My name is David Flashenrain, and I am a member of the Energy Committee. I'm here to give, for two reasons. One is to give just a general update on the MERP grant application and also where we are in that process, and also to start a discussion with the select board on looking at or selecting one of two options for improvements at Holly Hall. Joining us today is Asher Nelson, who's from Vermont Integrated Architecture. Asher and his team were awarded the contract to assist Bristol in pricing and developing a scope, refining the scope for the application, grant application. So just as a really brief overview for those who just to talk about what this is, I mean, the MERP, Municipal Energy Resilience Program is what that acronym stands for. And this is essentially money that was earmarked from the legislature for energy improvements to municipal buildings and, in Vermont. And a couple of things. One is the maximum grant per town is $500,000. And we have had a couple of deadlines, but our, the latest deadline is September 27th to complete the application. And once that application has been received, if we are successful, the grant recipients will get notified the week of October 21st. And then the towns who got the grants, there are agreements that need to be signed by November 20 and returned by November 29th. Those are basically agreements that, for the program. So that's it in a nutshell.
If I can add, this application process follows the energy assessments that were done on 3 buildings, Howden Hall, Holly Hall, and the library. And as a group, as a subcommittee or committee, there was an agreement or consensus to focus the resources on Holly Hall, because other resources or other initiatives could be applicable to the other buildings, and that given the scope of what this building needs specifically for the upstairs, that it was agreed that a maximum of $500,000 would be best spent on this building. So I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And part of the original MERP assessments, we felt that the pricing, everyone involved felt that the pricing was maybe off a little in terms of what was put into the assessment and what could be done at that cost.
We determined the cost was off by
Yeah.
a
A lot.
Yeah, and so that's why this another group was brought in to sort of give us these more accurate cost estimates.
Correct. So all of that is very true, and we'll that will be clear in the discussion as it goes, as it proceeds. We have been meeting with Asher and Madison and with the town officials as well, Valerie, Ian, to discuss how we can best meet the goals of the grant so that we're successful. And as Valerie mentioned, we decided early on to focus our efforts on Holly Hall, and if there was any money left over, that would be, maybe go to the library, we'd look at the library as well. We also, because we did have this focus for Holly Hall, that Madison suggested that we contact Greg Sakinski, I believe I'm saying Sakinski. Anyway, from the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation. And so we met here at Holly Hall, we looked around, and what we really wanted to do is get from Greg is a better understanding of what kind of changes would they find acceptable to the interior or the exterior of the building. What's off the table, what's possible.
And part of that is legitimate because I believe federal funds are involved in this grant program, and this building is on the National Register for Historic Places. And so anytime that the federal funding is involved in a project on the National Register, it has to be approved it has to go through a more rigorous review process.
Right, and Greg's office is the office that would make that determination for, even though it is a federal register, they're charged with doing that. That's their responsibility. So that was a really good conversation, and so we have a much better understanding of what is possible. So as we mentioned, as was mentioned, Asher and his team were looking at costs and looking at the real costs for the improvements in these MERV reports. And in our last update, as was mentioned, we knew that the numbers were off, but we weren't sure how far. And I think we found, that turns out that most of the 500,000, if not all 500,000, would just go to Holly Hall. Just to do insulation of the walls, adding the heat pump system, ventilation system, et cetera, and some lighting upgrades as well. But since, one of the estimates, we looked at two approaches. One of the estimates that is actually over 500,000, although there's still some discussion about what should be in and what should be out. But basically, there are two approaches that we looked at, that Asher and his team looked at, and each with a different cost and a level of energy improvement.
And invasiveness.
And what?
Invasiveness.
And invasiveness, yeah. So, impacts on the historic interior, we looked at as well. So deciding on which is the best approach or option for the town to pursue is what we'd like to put before the select board this evening. And Asher is going to help us. He's going to explain the options a little bit more in detail, help get that discussion going.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Feel free to chip in, Madison, if I leave anything out, or anyone who's involved with this process. I guess one overarching point here is that this all happened in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So the award of this contract, I think Madison and her crew at Regional Planning were really, I think, smart in saying the MERP applications would be much better if they had better data. Like, I think you even said a couple times, Madison, that they were just saying, well, make up some cost data. And so your approach was to reach out to people who are involved with design and construction and maybe have a little better finger on the pulse of current costs, which are, as everyone knows, we're in a construction boom and construction costs are super high right now. So I think that was really a great goal. This all has happened very fast, but the purpose was to actually help you understand better what you're getting into and also help make a better case to the state for award of the MERP grants. There are still some things. I think it was described as they're building the plane as they're flying it. Like, there's some things we don't know how they're going to respond to certain types of costs that have been put in there, or certain decisions, or what happens if we go through a process, we make a recommendation, we go through a process and we do some more analysis and understand that something we propose in this particular budget isn't actually the greatest move for the building. We decide not to do it. What happens to those? Like, I think there are still some unknowns in this process, and Madison is a little bit more, I think, up to speed on that side of things. I was really trying to spend the limited time I had on thinking about architectural issues and the building science impacts. Like, what are we really doing if we're trying to make energy improvements? Everything, when you work on a historic building like this, everything we do is sort of balancing priorities. So, obviously you're getting into this project because you're trying to improve the energy efficiency of this building. I think, as David mentioned, we have to really think about preservation deeply, both because it's a cultural resource for Bristol, but also because of the regulatory structure that overlays that. We're also thinking about technical solutions and where we're running ductwork. We're thinking about structural. If we have to put a mechanical room up there, how does that get supported, et cetera? And then, of course, the dollar. We're thinking about the cost of things. So we are trying to balance all those priorities and figure out what's the best move without a long design process and a lot of your constituency involved, because it's just this upfront investment of time to do this work to get to a proposal for the grant application. So that's the context. I think many of the things between option A and B, I think what you're being asked to decide between are commonalities. There are a lot of commonalities between how you put a mechanical system into that building. I think the biggest place where these two plans diverge is one is more strictly following the MERP report and saying the insulation in the walls would just be dense packed cellulose insulation that was pumped into the walls, and from the inside you drill a hole through the plaster, put a tube in there, fill it with dense packed cellulose, pull the tube out. And so that's putting one type of control layer, we'd like to call it, in the wall, which is increasing the thermal performance of the wall. It's insulation, but it's not really addressing control of air movement or vapor in that wall. So, and even in the MERP report, there's a little caveat. They wrote a paragraph saying, if you do this, you risk damage to the building and you should really have some modeling done. And so I think they understood that there's not maybe one answer, or there may be, we need more data, but we don't have time to go through that process and do moisture modeling for this building. So we looked at two different, that's sort of the less costly, less invasive option. And it answers the question, how would you improve the thermal performance? But it doesn't answer the question of, are you making sure you're not doing damage to the building? Are you making sure vapor isn't getting into that wall assembly? It could condense on cold surfaces, create moisture, and over time create a building degradation issue. The second solution is way more invasive. It involves taking the surface of the walls off, putting a vapor control layer on. While you do that, if you have the surface of the walls off, we were proposing putting a little more insulation in that assembly, and then putting board surface up and plastering the walls again and putting the wainscoting back on. And some other benefits. I think, again, we were making some assumptions this early in the process, but you have some pretty big radiation heat up there. But if you can, we assume right now that if you're improving the thermal resistance, like how much heat is moving out through that wall, and if you're improving how much air is also carrying temperature through that wall and out, then maybe you can reduce right now there's about a 24-inch high baseboard, like double stack baseboard radiation heat up there. We know we're probably gonna need to keep the baseboard radiation, but in the second solution, it would get replaced by something with a much more low profile, like a single high output baseboard. So, without going through some way more technical solutions, I don't think like a building moisture model or something like that, I don't think we have a firm answer. So we put these two proposals together. One, I think we'd be a little bit more sure and comfortable with the vapor control and reducing degradation in the wall assembly, but it's a lot more invasive and more costly. And the other one is simpler, but we don't have the confidence in the solution that it isn't going to do damage in the long term. So I think that's the context of how we get to talking to you all tonight. I don't know, Madison or David, if you have anything to add.
I just wanted to add, follow up on Asher's comment about the second option, option B, is that he mentioned that we'd be adding some additional insulation to the wall. That means that the actual wall surface will come in. We would lose about 1.5 inches of the space on the wall, and we would so it would be coming, it would be brought in, it'd be furred out, and we looked at the brackets, and we think that the brackets, we talked to Greg from the Historic Preservation Division, and he thought that it wouldn't be that noticeable, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for him if we did that. So we'd lose a little bit of the profile of the bracket, but you would still see the entire bracket. And so we thought we could detail that, sensitively, so that we could still maintain the look, but we would actually get that extra energy performance out of the assembly.
What are the walls now? 2x4? 2x6?
They're like a full 2x4.
5 3/4 inch.
5 3/4. So
regular 2x6.
2x6.
Yeah, and there's no insulation in any of the walls.
So I wonder, given that there's no insulation, how much heat are we losing through those walls that's being produced by the furnace through the heat system that's up there? So if we make this investment and seal up those walls and improve the heating and cooling capacity of that upstairs space, will we save energy on fuel?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the payback is still decades.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you will undoubtedly save fossil fuel. You're adding a heat pump system and a ventilation system. So the heat pump system will use electricity and not fossil fuel. There's ways to offset that with renewables. The ventilation is actually a new load. So you're not, and heat pump system is actually the most efficient way to deliver heat to the system. It also delivers cooling, but the ventilation is not a load that you have. So that's actually an increase of your electrical use. But I think if part of the goal is to reduce, fossil fuel use and carbon output, you're moving in the right direction.
So what was our total grant? 500,000, or at least that's what we're allowed to go for.
Yeah.
Do we run the risk by making it the full amount versus the 432 of not getting it, because we're still competing with other towns? Is there any worry about that? Because we could say, sure, let's do the full 500,000, and then out of capital funds we will pay the 70,000 extra. We'll add that in.
Mhm.
But are we running a risk of not getting anything by doing one versus the other? Because one's the full amount versus,
I personally, if I was scoring it, I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at what is more efficient, and that's what I would be. If I'm awarding you money to make stuff more efficient, I'm not gonna look at the end dollar cost. I'm gonna look at what's more efficient, and it might even be, in my eyes, it might even be a little more incentive that we're willing to kick money in to get there.
right, that's true.
Right, skin in the game.
Yeah.
If
I
I
mean,
may.
sure, Maddie.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in with, the application is not worth a ton of points in the scoring matrix. So the first thing I would say is I would ask for what you want and not try to game too much the application strategy, because so much of your points in that application matrix are actually just like criteria around the town as it is, the population and the staffing and the energy burden. Those are going to have a lot more weight than your application itself. So I would suggest to you all to just go ahead and ask for what you need. They have also told us that they will provide partial awards in cases where they want to quibble over certain costs. So that is also an option. And I guess the last thing I'll say is on the issue of, they give us a partial award, we can't do all the things on our list, so what do we do now? You are able to transfer funds from one kind of line item to another if things have to change when they give you that partial award. So there's a lot of flexibility that they've built in, understanding that you haven't had enough time to build a real scope of work and go through the longer design process that Asher was talking about. So just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about this.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. Do we have $71,306?
Our capital fund is quite healthy right now.
Okay. I mean, given that option, the less expensive option, there's a giant question mark around filling the walls the easier way and not knowing if that's going to affect the building down the line with the vapor barrier. I feel that even though that's 70,000 less, that's a huge risk that we might take if we choose that option, since we don't really know, unless we put more money in to actually do the calculations to see if that would affect it. So that puts me towards option B. My concern with option B is that it's a heck of a lot of work on the interior, and how much time would that take? And when would that happen, especially because we want to use the hall for various activities, especially the recreation department. Mm-hmm. So how long is it out of commission if we chose option B and went ahead with that kind of demolition inside?
So Meredith is still on the line. I wonder if Meredith, you have a sense of, is there a time of year, certain season where there's less use of Holly Hall, like April or February kind of thing?
Yeah, so the months of June, July, and August, and maybe the first part of September, we only have a few events that are happening in the hall because it is so hot in there. So even with the window fans that we have, the temperature remains inside about an 89 degrees. So I limit most of the programming in the summer. So like there's no dance class in the summer in the Holly Hall. The only thing that's really happens is Tai Chi, which they enjoy the warm weather in there.
Depending on when you're going to do this, don't forget, if it's an election year where we have one in August, that will not be an option.
Yep.
Meredith, do you have an opinion? Have you looked at the two options and do you have an opinion on either of them?
What I saw and I some of it I just didn't understand because I haven't had time to really look at it. Is the heat pump system is great. The insulation part I was still kind of questioning because I didn't quite understand how that was happening. Like I hear you cut a hole in and then you add insulation through that hole and it fills in the capacity behind the wall, or does the whole wall come out and it gets built out?
It's one of the options. In the lesser cost option, you're drilling holes through and trying to dense pack the walls through the hole, and that is it's slightly less effective methodology. The other, when you take the wall surface, I think you just have better QC on filling the wall with insulation, and you certainly have a better chance to add that control layer, like a membrane on the inside of the wall. I guess on the point of what you choose, I think there's a design process we have to go through and maybe some more technical work. And you could always drop back if you choose to do the higher, like the more expensive version. And we find that isn't building science or the bang for the buck, or it's just too complicated, or like there's still a long process in front of you. I think what I was hearing from Madison is you decide to, okay, let's go back to the other one, or maybe you just air seal, or they had an option in there for just caulking and sealing, which might be less damaging, just due to nothing to insulate the wall and improve other systems. Yeah, so I think that this is the full product was the one we thought we know we're closing down all these potential channels for damage. We're improving thermal envelope, and we're limiting the risk for moisture damage. So that's.
So Madison said, ask for what you want. So if
Right.
we ask for the five, if we decide we're going with that option, you ask for the 572.
Right.
You know you're limited to 500.
Right.
What happens if they only give us 300? Then we only do 300,000 worth of work and the rest doesn't get
Prioritize.
done.
Right.
Yeah. Or gets done another way.
Yeah.
I know, as far as drilling holes and putting insulation in, back 45 years ago, there was a craze of foaming walls.
Yeah.
And we lived in an old farmhouse and we had the walls foamed. Well, when we went to do some renovations and pull the walls down, there are a ton of voids.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where the bracing is, you
Yeah.
don't know where somebody stuck something in the wall. So you'd have great big areas that never got insulation.
Yeah.
So I don't, there's probably a way to figure out whether there's a void there or not, but I still think like you said, with the inside off, you're gonna know what's there.
You're gonna see what's there in the building.
And what were you talking for insulation if you took the wall off?
I believe it's been
Could be-
priced. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can speak to it, Ashley. Go ahead.
Sure. It was dense packed cellulose. And one of the reasons to choose that insulation is it actually has the ability to seasonally absorb a little bit of moisture and then exude that moisture in a more drying season. And then you use that with what's called an intelligent vapor barrier or smart vapor barrier, they call it, which will actually sometimes be vapor open and allow vapor out of that assembly. And then inside that, we'd want to keep a vapor open material. So usually you'd see Thermax or a polyiso foam board insulation. But we'd probably look to use something like Roxel or a mineral wool board so that moisture could continue moving through that assembly to the inside. To let that dry to the inside a little bit if it needs to.
So is that the reasoning behind going that route instead of a spray foam, which is also structural? Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of work in the state recently about impacts of spray foam, and some cases they're finding more damage to old buildings when you put spray foam in them. And then the other piece of spray foam is it has a carbon footprint of its own, so it takes a lot longer for you, a lot more energy savings, more years of energy savings to pay back the energy it took to make the foam, which is another calculation we're doing with insulation these days, which we're looking for the insulations that have the least amount of carbon to make them, so that you're not going negative in your picture, or not going nearly as negative in your picture. All the impacts of construction have carbon, so you want the benefits to outweigh that carbon or pay it back pretty quickly, just like money, really.
Preservation Trust probably wouldn't let you spray foam those walls anyway.
I'm just asking, so I'm educated.
I didn't actually explain in detail the budget, but I guess one of the thoughts behind that is to try to be comprehensive, show construction costs, design engineering costs, and owner's costs, like other costs outside the project, so you understand comprehensively what it is. I think Madison might tell you that some of those costs won't be, she can't put in the grant application. But you all, if you're embarking on this project, need to know what's the full cost of the project. And we always work with our clients to try to bring those costs down over the course of a project. So Bristol might be signing up for, let's just say it's at $571,000, but maybe there's 20 of it that wouldn't go in the grant anyway. So you'll have some kind of skin in the game no matter what, right?
Manny, do you know, looking at the two quotes that were put together, can you see what wouldn't be applicable for the grant?
Yeah, so I can't say this for sure because, as we've said, BGS is building the plane and flying it at the same time. But my guess is that most of the owner costs would not be eligible. All of the design professional fees that are listed there, I think, are eligible costs, and we've wrapped them in. I've got a draft application for folks to review once I know what things to include and what things not to include, but I've included all of those design professional fees in my draft. I have not included any of the owner costs. The other thing I wanted to say is I think, Asher, you might have stepped away when Greg was saying this to David and I, but I think he said he wouldn't require a preservation consultant for this project. He tries to avoid requiring that for smaller towns. And so there are some costs that might just kind of automatically come out of this budget. I don't think we should necessarily assume that, but it's just nice to kind of know where you stand. And I think that's why we wanted to do this with you all and Asher. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're saying that in that one, it's 53,000?
53, yeah.
53. You're thinking
total
wouldn't,
58.
yeah, wouldn't be included in the grant application, and that would be on us.
Right, which it already is because we're over by 71.
Right.
So, yeah. David, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what does the committee have?
Yeah.
Well, I think from a building science standpoint, it only makes sense to do this project the right way. That we can address the air infiltration and do vapor control. Like air infiltration was one of the big issues that was cited in the report. And the first option doesn't really do anything really for for air sealing or air infiltration for the walls. It's just, if you saw the infrared photos they did and the thermal imaging, you could see just that whole wainscot is just air is just coming right through it. The wainscot is actually applied directly to studs. There's no drywall, there's nothing or plaster underneath that. So it's really just an open system. And I think that this approach of option B is really the best approach to get. If we're gonna do all this work anyway, we're gonna spend almost $500,000 on option A. Let's do it right and do the added improvements to get, both better energy, improvement of the wall, but also that better control of vapor that goes through the wall and also air infiltration to the building. And I'll just add that doing this, I think it was mentioned about, or Valerie had asked the question earlier about, reduced energy, that, the energy costs, but also that one thing that our committee has talked about is that if we were to improve the energy performance of the building enough, that right now we have this boiler backup system we will have a boiler backup system for the heat pump system. And that boiler, I think is 14 years old. I can't quite remember the number of years, but we may actually improve its life expectancy because it's really not going to be, it's not going to be on all the time. It's not going to be in service all the time. Yeah. So, and so not only are we saving on fossil fuel use, but also we're
Extending the life of the
yeah, extending the life of the boiler. So, so anyway, I think it's a win-win if we do it. I know that it does, it's a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money to me. And but I think that it's really the right thing to do. This is our chance to really do it right. And no one's going to come in once it's in the wall, whatever's in the wall, you're not going to probably touch it again. So I think so.
We talked about it at the energy committee last week, and the only reservations we had about option B was that, we had come to you all earlier and said, oh, there's going to be no cost to the town. And we kind of were like, oh, now we're going to go back and tell them there's a cost. So that was kind of, we kind of had some, we want to do it right, but we were also concerned that, we told you there was no cost and now there's a cost, so.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time.
I know, but still, we wanted to be authentic, we wanted to be.
I mean, and part of that 571,000, 162,000 of it is improving both lighting and air, fresh air coming into the building, going out of the building, as well as all the heat pumps. So that's a big chunk of it. It's not just 570 on insulating the walls and then we're done. It's like there's a huge other component to that, which with the higher cost one, it seems like the heat pump and the air ventilation works much better than taking a chance on potentially having moisture issues down the line. And also, as Speaker said, not insulating as well as we could because there are cavities in there that we can't reach with just drilling holes and putting it in. Whereas we have full control if we're doing all the walls inside.
Matt, comments, concerns?
I mean, option B is certainly better, and if the state's gonna pay for it, then why not choose the better option as long as we're okay disturbing the plaster like that. What I'd suggest is that, I think there were some comments in the proposal about ideally a blower door test is done at this time, and ideally that seeks and finds any flaws in the system. I highly recommend you write that in with a cost to definitely happen. Because even if you rip these walls apart, and even if someone puts up a smart membrane, if they don't seal it, it's still not tight. And the only way to know is to test it before you put that drywall up, and it gets all buried again. So I think I'd write that in, and same thing with the ductwork. If you're gonna put ducts in an attic, they need to be airtight, and that's not always the case when you just get a system installed. So pressure test the ducts, pressure test the building, through progress.
Yeah, if you don't ask, you don't know.
And there is a line item for some testing in the estimate, so that could fit that category.
I think I heard most of that was Matt. Was that Matt in the background?
Yeah.
Yes.
Writing a blower door test into the spec and pressure testing the duct. I mean, ideally, I think we want to make sure the ducts are on the warm side and buried in insulation and not subject, but they should be pressure tested well. So I totally agree with that. And like, that's really great granular information for like 3 or 4 steps down the road when we get into design phase and specs and stuff. But if you have a building committee, Matt might want to participate, right?
That's a great one.
The other thing I just wanted to mention, and Matt is making me think of this, is Efficiency Vermont has reached out to you all and to me directly to kind of offer custom incentive services. And I would recommend, as soon as you've identified which direction you want to go, to immediately approach Emily Eckert, who reached out to you all, and say, you know, this is what we're thinking of. Can you help us start through this process? Because I imagine they're going to be quite busy as soon as everybody else is funded. And so would be good to get in that door sooner rather than later.
I think you could count on a $5,000 incentive for this. Custom incentives, you need to have a lot of energy savings, and I don't know, with the use of the upstairs not always being heated, if there's enough energy savings to justify more of an incentive than that, but we'd look at it.
Great. Well, I'm leaning towards the more expensive. We have a healthy account in terms of the additional costs that we might incur if we go this way. And again, this is all dependent on us getting this grant. So there's still a lot of, as people have said, a lot of steps before we even know where we stand.
And we have at least one more budget cycle to go through as
Right.
well. So if you want to reevaluate or take a closer look at what we do have available and add to it perhaps if we need to. I don't think you do, but at least not at this point.
Baker,
Oh,
you're on board with number 2 or
Yes.
plan B, whatever it is.
yes.
Jessica?
I'm on board with it for right now, but once we get the money, I think we really need to be careful with the design phase, just because we have a lot of things that are forcing their way onto the agenda, like Bricks Hill Road and all of these other projects, that I worry about making such a big investment in something that we're choosing to do now versus something that's like a crisis situation that we have to resolve. That said, I think we should totally apply for the grant. I think we should apply for it, doing it the right way, and then we can see what we get. So as Asha was saying, in the design phase, I think we can revisit these questions.
No comment?
Well, I got here late, I'm sorry, I apologize, but, so a couple of questions I have is the more expensive one is tightening it up, sealing it up, insulating it properly, then new air ducts and new heat pumps and things.
Taking the interior walls
Right,
off
interior wall.
and insulating everything, furring it out,
The mechanical room up in the
Yeah.
attic, I think.
And then,
a vapor barrier.
Vapor barrier.
then new
Which you,
heat pumps.
which you would not get with the first plan. You wouldn't get a vapor barrier. They'd just drill holes and pump.
Right, no, I agree with your first statement there, but, so, but the more expensive phase is heat pumps outside and heat pumps into, or the things outside and inside that can be added, or?
Yes, both include that. The biggest difference is the insulation type.
Right.
It's either drill the holes, pump it in, or completely rebuild the walls. That's the
Okay.
biggest difference between the two.
So my question is then, I thought that's where it was going, so actually, could we do all of it except and do it in 2 phases, kind of like we're doing the water lines? And add the heat pumps, plumb for them, wire for them now, and buy them. Maybe the efficiency of those things are getting better and better every day as they're building them, kind of like computers. And could we do this in a 2-stage approach? Get it tight, get it insulated well, everything, which will reduce I heard somebody say, Matt said it, that we may not get the 5,000 because we don't use enough energy up there. well, we can save the energy even with our boiler. And then at a later date, when we got a little more capital money, we set the units outside and plumb to them. They're all
Yeah.
plumbed by the big expensive units, the units that are gonna be a big cost. It's gonna be done.
I don't know if we can answer that quite yet. I mean, I think the interesting thing you're bringing to the table is the idea of, is there parts of this can be phased? But I think this stage, you're kind of going for the grant. And once you know, A, are you awarded the grant, and B, for how much, then that might change the way you think about the whole thing. And I think actually, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but once you apply for this grant, you have to have the intent of doing what's in the grant, right? If they award it. So
Yeah, and I would just say the idea of phasing the projects is interesting, and if you want to have that conversation, I'm happy to, but I would just say you would have to do the insulation and air sealing as the phase that MERP is funding, and think about the heat pump section, if it's even possible, as the second phase, given the way the BGS team has prioritized weatherization first. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to apply for just a heat pump and ventilation system. You would have to do either both or just weatherization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, you apply for both.
Yes, for the moon, see what you get.
Yeah, that's for the moon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And our match is not gonna change. But if we didn't buy the heat pumps and we had to buy them on our own, our match wouldn't be a match, it would be all out.
100% us. Mhm.
Can I offer-
Then there is no match for this program.
Right.
I think part of the heat pump system is a ventilation system in the same ductwork. And if we're gonna make this place super tight with this wall work, we're really gonna want that ventilation. We're not gonna wanna skip that step, I don't think.
No, I wasn't thinking skipping.
Yeah.
steps.
Right, yeah, but as far as phasing, who knows how long down the line the duct system would come into play. Now you have a tight building without ventilation.
And then we got our moisture problems.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with Matt. That the more nuanced answer is there's a lot of engineering that would have to happen because we're actually changing the radiation as well. So someone's gonna have to be on board to actually do some heat load calcs and figure out what the heat pumps can do and when is the boiler going to supplement. And so I just think it's too detailed. We have this is really preliminary pre-design work to just get you to a budgets for the grant. And they're great questions, but we just can't answer them quite yet.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
I would recommend it.
We want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept option B.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Onward.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, committee.
Have a good night, everybody.
You get to take over.
You too.
Okay,
Number 3.
number 3.
And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Riveting. Riveting. Public hearing, Bristol Waterline Replacement Project, Bristol West. 90% design plans review with Steve Palmer, VTM Engineering.
Still doing this.
Did you just not pull a chair?
Yeah, thank you.
And do you want a mini muffin?
No, thank you. I just had a salad.
A salad, listen to him. He had a salad and you're passing out cider
He
muffin.
hit the gym, had a salad, came
Yeah,
here.
with Palmer maple syrup on it.
I wish.
See, he didn't say no maple syrup on it.
That was his maple vinaigrette. That was his dressing, right?
You're up.
Valerie, can I ask you a favor?
You can ask.
No.
Oh, yeah.
USB.
USB in that?
Yeah.
Can you just put that in and pull up the Bristol folder? I tried emailing it to you, but it's too large.
Is it the one you emailed me earlier?
I tried 2 things. Which one did you get? One kickback.
Yeah.
I think it was it the plans that kicked back or the,
Well, I got the updated plan set.
okay, so it's this one that didn't go through. It's because I pulled them in as,
So where am I
JPEGs.
looking?
so I can't see it, but if you,
Oh, do you want me to show?
there should be a Bristol folder there. Should be like the 3rd one down.
Okay.
And in that, there should be,
one that says presentation, today's date on it?
Yeah,
That's the one.
okay.
That's
is-
very
It's
trusting.
a, it's a,
Your
uh,
drive.
it's a PowerPoint. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Try that with a bank computer, you wouldn't, it would even let you.
Right,
type it.
I know, you're not kidding.
Let's see. How
It's a
do I,
share
how do I
screen.
turn off that sidebar?
Go to,
Slideshow?
yeah, up top.
But if you're just gonna show it as a slide, you don't have to do that. you
But I
can-
don't want to see the.
And then just go to slideshow, right up top, yeah, click on that, and then it'll say start. What did it say? Okay.
Stupid computer. It's not
Is it
good.
working?
Nope.
From the beginning.
Oh, from the beginning.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so
And then you just share it.
now I have to figure out how to get the,
So it-
Zoom.
Yeah, so go to Zoom, share screen.
Right,
And then as soon as you get into it, click the same thing again from beginning.
from beginning. Here we go. From beginning.
Right there. And then see
Something
it'll-
like I was
looking
Click it one more time again.
He don't usually
There we
look
go,
for
there
me
we
this
go.
time of night, so.
Okay, she's good.
Nailed it.
Ooh,
Oh,
wow.
that's good.
Teamwork. Yeah.
Is that the sewer pipe?
That's our new water line. What do you think?
That was Pine Street, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So same vintage though, right? That's what we're looking at throughout town. So that particular section of pipe looked pretty good, but you can see a lot of mineral buildup in there. So anyway,
We will get that on that blue,
you wouldn't with new,
ductile.
either one because it's lined with cement, right? So they're concrete line, they don't build up that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
That's the whole point. As all of you know, we've been working along pretty diligently between Jill and Valerie and myself on the design drawings with the goal of being able to apply for DWSRF funding in January. So this is another milestone in that process, right? So we had 30, 60, 90% review standards that we put in the application. So this is one of the things that we have to go through in order to be able to show that we've done all the steps necessary in order to get the funding at the end. I think we should, let's just go to the next slide and we'll just get started. How's that? We're running behind tonight anyway. Okay, so here's a map that we made up, and I think this is helpful for everybody, right? You've all gotten spreadsheets saying, okay, as you realize, we decided to split this up into 4 separate phases, right? Pine Street was phase 1, that's done. Bristol West is everything you can see in blue. Valerie, maybe you can point to it. Yeah, it's everything to the west of North Street. Okay, yeah.
That's purple to me, but.
Purple, okay.
Because I looked first like that, it was like the outside line was blue and I was like,
Wait a second.
Just do it.
Hang
For
on.
folks, I don't know if we
From
have folks.
current, from current.
Okay.
We might have some folks watching from home. You guys, I think it's helpful for me. I'm a visual person, right? I can look at a map and I can say, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a little harder with a spreadsheet. So we decided to make this so that folks could follow along, right? Everything in blue is what is phase 2, what we call Bristol West, right? It's everything west of North Street. Everything in red is Bristol East. That's coming soon. And everything in green, and there are 2 lines, right? That's what we refer to as Rocky Dale as phase 4.
And here's the tank up here.
Here's the tank, exactly.
And roads that aren't marked are ones that have piping that is of an age that's appropriate.
Even the
Correct.
70s, correct?
yeah, I was just gonna ask
Oh,
that,
what's
with
the
a red, when Bristol East, I'm like, how come all the roads aren't in there, but
Right,
okay, that explains
yeah,
why.
and to the north too.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
'Cause those
So,
are added later,
Mhm.
Yeah.
as it expanded.
right, and you can see your, what do you call it, your water, your service area, sorry, I have a mental block here. So your service, you've got a pretty large service area, actually.
I
It's
know
larger than
age
I
does
expected.
it.
What's that?
He said age does it.
Yeah, it was a long night and an early morning, that does it as well.
So I learned that, these properties are also included somehow. So I don't know where.
What are
exactly-
those properties?
Up to Hazel Drive.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, just let us know, I mean, it's a simple change. We might
Yeah, I'm
as well
not
have
sure how the
included that.
district line was devised, you know, the actual district
Isn't the
boundary.
water see the water extended.
Right, but
It's a moving
as a
target.
district though, because the district is
Gets
supposed to
gets
be.
updated on the back of the
defined.
map.
Well, it had to expand when the lot size changed. Because there's no way you could go with the high density lots there and have everybody have drilled wells, so it's just not isolation distance.
Excuse me, so I live on Taylor Avenue, I recognize you, because you've been driving around.
Walking all around town.
Yeah, and I know Joel very well, but anyway, so I live on Taylor Avenue, and I was just wondering what the time, what you have planned, this is 2026, your plan, right?
Correct. Why don't we?
Because Randy,
jump to the next slide?
can you hold your, I just have to hold your question for a moment. But yeah, I think he's on that. He'll get to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was the next slide. Do you want
Yeah,
that
so
one?
very next slide. So here's Bristol West by itself.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's 9 streets in here.
Yeah.
Taylor Avenue, certainly one of them. The thought process right now is to bid this as one complete project to be split over 2 construction seasons, okay?
I see.
And the contract, the low bid contractor would come to the town with a phasing plan and a schedule, and how they split that phasing plan out, whether they want to start Taylor Avenue as part of 2026 work or 2027 work. That's something yet to be determined.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think there's quite a few considerations for them in this, for that. We had talked at one point about recommending certain streets to contractors, and I think you as a municipality are better off, you're gonna get better bids, I think, if you allow them to come to us and dictate how they would like to do this. So.
Steve, what are the black boxes?
Oh, sorry, those are just sheet numbers. You're gonna see that in a minute.
Okay, get it. I already get it.
Yeah, it's just,
Tell me when
it
you
gets
want
confused. Yeah, please do. Okay, so let's start with Elm, right next to you. And I think the easy thing to take away from this, we went through this 3 months ago, right? We went through the 60% design. The real change for you folks here is we've added and highlighted the trees to be removed and replaced, right? So there's give and take on every single bit of this, right? We sit down and we look at it. And when we get to some photos here, and you'll see some Elm Street photos, and we go through this on every single street, and we're saying, okay, number one consideration is how do we construct this the least expensive way possible? Okay, number two is what are we gonna impact if we do that? Right? How do we avoid, to the extent possible, overhead utility lines, having to hold poles, limit the asphalt disturbance, limit how many trees we have to remove, or we're gonna probably kill by going through here, right? Those kind of things. So those are all things we're thinking about as we're going along, whether utilities are in the way, how. So Elm Street in particular, Valerie, I think if you jump ahead a couple of slides, I'm gonna move through these pretty quickly. Let's just jump ahead so you guys can visually, there you go. You can visually see what we're proposing. We're proposing coming right down the south side of the street, which is the right-hand side, as you're looking at this photo, right? There's a green belt down through there that really begs to have a new water line put in there.
Yep.
There are a couple of limitations as we get down toward the far end. We had to come back in the street, but really we're trying to avoid the asphalt, right? It's about $50 a square foot to have to repave anything. There's a lot of areas we can't avoid, right? There's a lot of stuff out there, but this is one that I think would be a really good candidate to put in the green belt to the extent we can. So, if you look at 1,000-foot long street, right, it's a $50,000 savings if we can keep the water line
just in
the green belt. Yeah, and it's a much faster project as well.
The green belt you're referring to is the south one, right?
Correct.
Yeah, not the one with the utilities in.
Correct. I think that from a contractor standpoint, in terms of building this, it's much faster to be able to work just in the grass than it would be to have to go ahead and cut the asphalt, remove the asphalt, put back the sub base, repave everything. We went through some Pine Street and everybody saw how long it takes to get there, right?
Well,
It's quite a process.
the other side of that is you're not running on dirt if you have bad weather.
That's right.
Like we did with West Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but you're pretty close to the edge of asphalt here, so I think it's a pretty good trade-off.
So Steve, the trees that you're just example, the trees that you're taking out on whatever, any street, whatever, I seem to see that you're replacing them with the ginkgo below whatever tree. Are those like the ones that are being recommended because they're the most resilient?
Yeah.
So we had a forester that came in and looked at all this with us and said, okay, here's the ones I don't think are gonna survive. And he was the ones, there were a few in there that he said, they may survive, but you're gonna take out 50% of the root system. If you get a big wind,
It's
there's
going down.
nothing on the street side to hold the tree anymore.
So they're not gonna fall in the street.
Yeah, that was his concern, and rightly so. So there were a couple of things that they looked at. Number one was, you know, do we have height above it to be able to allow that type of tree to grow? Number two, are they salt tolerant? That was a big one. Right, because a lot of these won't do well, and do the root systems really dive? You know, I was hoping to find trees, they're gonna be pretty close proximity to the water lines if you take them out, right? I was hoping to find a tree that didn't have root systems, like a weeping willow, that, right?
Is
for
this
instance.
present water line on the south side lane or more in the center?
I'm sorry?
Is the present water line?
If we go back 2 slides, you should see right there, or 1 slide, sorry. The current one is in red.
Yep.
Okay.
Blue is
one
almost
in
right
blue.
beside it.
Yep.
Yeah, right next to each other.
There's not a lot of room in there, but there's, I'm pretty sure, enough to get through.
Hey, question,
Yes.
what's the sidewalk like?
That's what I was going to ask you.
There's no sidewalk right
The
there.
sidewalk on the north side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care what side it's on, I'm just, what's the sidewalk like? I mean, if it's a sidewalk we're gonna be replacing.
Yeah, the gentleman that lives there.
Yeah, I mean, most of it, other than right in front of Donna's house, is in really good shape.
Yeah. Then forget I said anything.
And I guess the second
we can-
question I
Church
had,
Street might be another
Right,
story.
but we can, and we have our list from a couple of years ago of our whole sidewalk study, so we can compare that. I don't know if Steve has looked at that.
I don't know.
I think
But we
also,
can, look at each street and compare
I
and
think-
just see, but you're right,
Yep.
it's a good opportunity.
You know, overhead lines, you think about all those poles, that was another reason we decided to sit
Yeah.
on the south
Oh, I
side.
see what you're saying on the south
You have to
side.
hold every one of those poles going down through here, that would be
Yeah.
an issue.
Although I
Is-
like trees better than poles.
You don't care if the poles fall over?
what if,
Just move them.
Go ahead, sorry.
how many, I noticed there was 7 tie-ins on the north side,
Correct.
7 residents. Do we know if those all are lead or galvanized, or the copper to the curb? Al?
Jill would know that.
Jill, you're working on the water line
Inventory.
inventory?
Yeah, it's a mix. There's a lot more copper than galvanized throughout town, which is a blessing. But there are some galvanized lines on, there's about, I think, 22 or 23 in this particular project.
Well, we're talking about now, I was just asking about that.
I'll have to pop open my spreadsheet. I didn't memorize how many
No, I
were
don't
on
need
each
it tonight,
road.
we just, if you have to cross 7 times, you've got pavement you gotta cut there too.
And we're gonna disturb the sidewalk. Every one of the curb stops is right on the edge of sidewalk here.
Yeah,
So,
every single service line from the new water line to the curb is getting replaced regardless.
okay.
Oh,
Now,
okay,
if you back up 1 slide, please.
that's what I was wondering, from the 8-inch, from the 4-inch main
It's kind of small here.
to the
but
curb stop, was it copper?
Yeah, you'll see a little box around the sidewalk. That's a disturbance in every one of those.
Okay.
That we anticipate.
Can you do the directional boring, or is that not an option?
It's not feasible for those short lines.
You gotta have, you gotta have you think about it, you gotta have a pretty good pit in order to even do
Oh,
that,
I see.
right? So,
Okay. Yeah, all right.
you're
They're
pretty
like triple
limited.
our paving line.
Directional boring works good if you've got longer distances, right, in the area work. So anyway, 2 trees to be removed, and I know that's usually a big concern for the public. One happens to be in this gentleman's front
I was
yard.
gonna say, it must be right in Chris's house.
It is, and honestly, it didn't fare well with all the, whatever, not chips, whatever was there, now spongy, whatever the hell worms in.
Yeah.
It hasn't recovered well.
Oh, the emerald.
So you'll be happy to have them take it down so it doesn't fall on the house, right?
Absolutely. I told Steve, I'm like, take it, I'm good with it.
All right, that's good. That's 1 check mark, that's positive.
I like your thought on saving pavement as much as you can, because I believe that street is almost perfect. It just got paved not too long ago, but I think of Maple Street, when we get talking about that street needs to be repaved, the whole thing anyway.
Right.
So it may be cost effective to go down the middle
Right,
versus.
yeah, and we'll get there.
Let's
We'll
look at
the
making
room on Maple.
priorities.
You'll see.
No,
Okay.
drive your street sometime, look at them.
The question did made me wonder about, well, what if the line did go down the sidewalk to avoid all of those trees. There are no trees on that side. Yes, the poles have to get held. So what?
Yeah, they're just poles.
Just poles, yeah, just hold them. And you avoid, whoops, cutting into the road at all, possibly. And you don't take any trees, sorry, there, Chris. But you know, you get a new sidewalk out of it because it's gonna get disturbed anyway, a bunch of times down along the way. At this stage of the game, what if that turned out to be, that's maybe not a bad idea. At this stage of the game, what would be involved in changing that?
I can still change that. That's, you know, we probably have a little bit different cost estimate for that street. It's not gonna change dramatically.
I see your point there. I like that idea, Valerie, because there's only 4 curb cuts going to the south if you went down the sidewalk, across the street versus 7.
As a rule, I mean, we try to the extent we can to avoid any working around the overhead power lines.
That's true. Yeah.
Trying to get the power company here to hold the poles is a huge problem. It becomes a cost issue because.
$2,000 a day.
Yeah,
Hold
it's a
the
big
pole.
number.
$2,000.
And it requires a lot of timing and scheduling. It's difficult
Yeah.
to work with power companies sometimes.
Okay. Just a thought.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a good one.
That wasn't very quick moving through that.
Let's see.
so.
Okay, let's see if we can get to the next one.
We asked too many questions.
There's your tree.
There's
Yeah.
my dead tree.
And my
It
finger.
still has
before
leaves
that.
on it.
All right, let's get it replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
Move along.
Okay, West Pleasant. Okay, I just refer to it as Pleasant, but I
That
know
works
everybody
for me.
corrects me.
Yeah.
This is Munsell here?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
This is Munsell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, it might help, Valerie, why don't we skip ahead 3 slides just to look at a picture so everybody gets an idea, same on, one more, yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're going from Liberty, from West Pleasant to Maple then.
that's right, we're going from Liberty all the way to north.
Oh, all the way to North, excuse me.
Correct. So if we back up one, you get a sense, things are fairly wide open in here, right? However, when you move up to the next block.
This one?
There you go. When you move up to the next block, right, you can see what happens. Power.
Starts tightening up.
Yeah, a lot, right? Because of the sidewalk, power moves over to this side of the road. We had a lot of concerns for the trees that were in here. There's a lot of old maples along the north side of the roadway. We had some other utilities in here that we were trying to avoid. When you get up a little bit further, you get into drainage structures and a whole bunch of other things that we need to, you know, keep a 5-foot minimum separation from. So we made a decision, the least amount of conflicts was really on the north side of the roadway. If we go to the design drawings, go back a couple of slides. Yep. Okay, you can see the existing in red and the proposed in blue. And you can see, we made the decision to try to run a nice straight line, essentially. We're slightly inside the edge of asphalt because of the number of trees, and you can see some of these pictures, right? And if you drive Pleasant, I mean, they're beautiful trees. They're not, I think you would get, this is my opinion, I think we would get a lot of complaints from the.
Pushback.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. And the other side of the road, we've got, you know, overhead electric and the same issues that we talked, in a sidewalk, and the same issues that we talked about. You know, trying to hold the poles.
So Jessica wants to bury all those lines anyway.
Yeah.
This,
She wants to bury the lines.
this line right here, this is the schools, right? It feeds underneath like the horse or the, down that road.
That goes to the school.
Yeah.
I believe that's true. Is that true, Joe?
That goes right to the high school.
That goes to the high school?
What was
Goes
the
to the-
question again? That the West Pleasant one goes to the high school?
Yeah, that's the one that goes to the school, right? Where my
I mean-
cursor is.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it the West Pleasant line. I guess that you could, I mean, it sort of extends that way, but I always think of it that like, it's basically the back tie into the school. So the school has a feed from what I call Liberty Street, right? Because I'm standing on Liberty Street when I look over to that line.
Yeah.
They also have a feed on Airport Drive, so they're looped.
Okay, but this is part of the loop, so this doesn't get interrupted, or does it?
Probably would have a moment of cutover.
Right.
But it doesn't change, like with the the piping beyond that, heading to the
Doesn't
west.
go beyond Liberty,
Yeah, goes right through the field.
because that was put in 68.
Okay, so it's
He's
tied
right.
into this one and goes
Right.
across here, but
Right.
it's separate from this.
Right.
Yeah,
I see.
because
Okay.
it's technically tied into Liberty Street, like,
Got it, okay.
that's how I think of it, because West Pleasant is technically,
If you,
you could call it like horizontal, where Liberty is vertical. In this particular picture, it pulls off of Liberty.
I see,
And
okay.
it's not a T that's there.
There's something over by where the like the horse ring is, where there's like a number of
There's another
different
valve.
valves, so
Yeah.
it's something similar to that, though.
But it's not a cross, it's right
But you
there
would-
that shoots right straight across Pleasant,
Correct.
comes off of Pleasant, goes right straight across.
yeah.
It's offset.
Okay.
Yeah,
Slightly.
but you would.
It probably is jogged a little bit further north, from what I recall being in that intersection. It's a little further, just a little further north.
You wouldn't be shutting off the high school, even if you had shut it off, because they're also fed from Airport Drive.
Right.
They've got two feeds. Their hydraulics would change a little bit, and I think if this project ends up anything like Pine Street, we tried to make sure that the shutoffs were as tiny as possible and that the cutovers were, done strategically one at a time.
Okay, Doug, go back to that two beyond, before that. So for our Munsell, we have our drainage project that we're working on. What's the tie-in with that? in
That's the
this
green.
project?
So that, yeah, so we added the locations for that.
Okay,
We did a preliminary design.
you
and
know about that.
Right, so
Okay, good.
we tried to assume that it was in place, right, for this drawing when we designed this. So
Okay.
we wanted to make sure we left Eric enough space to be able to do that if we need to.
Okay,
Right.
if that drainage was, the thought was that would go in with the bid. And the contractor could be going north on Munsell towards the old Autumn Hart building up to the crest of the knoll.
Yeah.
And put the drainage all the way to West Street.
Okay, and we did do a scoping study for sidewalk, but at the moment, I don't think there's any firm plans to place a sidewalk on Munsell.
Only conceptually
Right.
at this point.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
so we could move along. Go to the next intersection. Same thing, right? We're just essentially voiding all your existing utilities. Everything up here, by the way, in green is existing today. So all of your drainage structures, that's either what's on north or.
So what you're saying here is
Taylor.
from north to the Liberty Street intersection, from North Street all the way west to Liberty Street, you're down the middle of the road.
It's on the north
Or
side.
north side,
Yeah,
in the west hand lane.
correct.
West lane. Travel.
Correct, and it's a pretty narrow street. I mean, when we get into we had the luxury on Pine Street, you've got some added pavement right there. You gotta look at a lot of these
You got a
streets.
lot more added pavement now.
Well,
than we had
yeah,
before.
no, true, but.
Streets about three
I'm just saying,
percent
we
of
don't-
it was.
We had the luxury of running one-way traffic and doing all these things. I think we're gonna be much more pinched on
Compact.
some of these streets, right? Especially when you get into like Elm
Mhm.
and Taylor. They're pretty narrow streets, so.
Thought you were going into Greenbelt on that.
We are, there's still, by the time you get all the equipment there.
You know, those equipment operators, they gotta have 4 miles.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so questions on Pleasant? There's no trees that we're proposing to remove on
Well, that's
Pleasant.
great.
So I think that takes away some of the challenges that we may have, concerns we may have from public.
Okay.
Next. Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
Just trying to shift around.
Looks like one to the west street.
Yeah,
That's Taylor.
you can see some of the challenges up through there, right? Like if we were on the south side of the road.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
okay.
You see that,
That tree looks
go
healthy.
back, please, one,
That tree
You
looks
see-
healthy.
yeah, and give that pavement 3 more years and it's gonna be needing replacing anyway.
Yeah, it's time for an overlay now, but
More
we've
than-
got a water line project coming, you might as well wait.
Yeah.
Okay, Church Street. Church Street is pretty straightforward. Same thing, right? Existing water line, more or less on the south side of the road, new one on the north. Yeah, one slight jog you can see in there, that's to get around the drainage structure, right? We need to stay 5 feet off the drainage structure, right?
Hey, can you put that one in the sidewalk on either side?
By law.
That's a fairly new sidewalk. down
Well,
there.
we can take a
It
look.
doesn't look like it, believe me.
That's not, is that Church Street? Yeah, it is.
It is. I didn't think the sidewalks looked too bad.
Now,
Maybe
the
you
far end, the water
The
just
other end.
sits on it.
Yeah, towards North Street.
Yeah.
Right, so you look at this,
Shade of
you got a
green
pretty
down
good sense of
the
why we decided to go on the north side of the
She
street.
agreed with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Down.
So,
When your
okay.
green belt's higher than your sidewalks, that's your
Any
problem.
questions on
Mhm.
church?
Nope.
That one's pretty straightforward.
That's not there anymore.
I think this one's.
No, that was
gone,
gone.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, act of God, that's gone away.
Yeah. Next.
All right, that's the next.
Next. All right, School Street, this is a really, well, other than our School Street extension discussions, this is a pretty straightforward piece here, it's small. Obviously, West Street is on your left. Right, so we're working our way up and you can see the intersection of Park up on the right-hand side.
Mhm.
So we did, by the way, overlay the drainage project that you folks, had provided us information on. There is a conflict there if they ever go ahead with that drainage project. Beauty of the drainage project is that it's completely modular. So it might require some rethinking of how you lay that into the park out. They might have to move the playground equipment in order to put that in, for instance, right?
Steve, I have a question on
Yeah.
the Park Street, not the school. The Park Street is the
That's the
one where
next
the
one.
dentist is.
Yep, that's the
Yeah,
next,
that's the next one.
so the very next slide.
Oh, okay. I thought that was it.
You done with this one?
Yep,
Uh-oh.
Now you gotta make it smaller again.
here's just a picture of school. Now, next one should be park. Yep,
That's going over in the parking spots.
correct. And that was intentional.
I guess the question I have is, what would be the cost? There's just two structures that need water on Park or Park Street, the dentist's office.
It's a
and the
loop
church.
system.
That's,
the
I know it is, speaker. But I'm
But that's
asking,
the reason. That's the reason for putting the big line down there. I know where you're going, just put services to those houses.
right, and just bring it from West Street up school and not do,
But
or
then
maybe then cut through the alley like we talked about and not do that section with 6-inch or 8-inch main.
So the hydraulic analysis recommended looping.
Okay, good.
So,
You see where I was going with that?
I do.
Yeah, I knew right where you were going.
Okay.
correct.
Next.
Yep, so by the way, we intentionally chose the parking spaces because I think here we've got plenty of pavement width to be able to hopefully retain some traffic and we can all work together on how we're gonna use the park and, try to, I mean, that's a really well-used area, especially in the summer. And I think we wanna find ways to try to maintain
Maybe if you
as
did,
much
if you did that
normalcy
early,
as we can.
early May before we had concert starts and that things, yeah, I'm thinking. before-
And I think those are all the discussions we're gonna have with the contractor, once you know who it is and what their phasing plan is, so. Okay. Just a couple of pictures, right? West Street, this is a fun one.
That's down to Maple.
I wonder if it's, yes, so by the way, you folks replaced from Maple to the high school back in 2000.
Back the last time we got 50% forgiveness.
We didn't
get it.
I was gonna say, the last time we got screwed.
I thought we just did,
2017.
I thought we just
17, was
did,
it?
I thought we just did
So
Maple
North Street was
to
2000.
to west, going west.
Before my time.
Maple going west, yes.
2000.
Yeah, this is from North Street to me.
No,
Yes.
yeah, that's what,
We didn't do that.
Oh.
no.
We're doing it now.
Right.
Oh,
So we're
I
gonna-
see.
I thought you just said we got.
No, he's just saying this is only going to Maple, is what he said.
So where are we doing? We're
So-
on
So we're connected, the proposed is blue again, right? The
Mhm.
existing is red. So in the 2017 project, you folks ended right on the east side of Maple. You can see the connection.
Mhm.
So what we're proposing is picking up right at that, just beyond that connection. And running down, and Valerie, we're gonna run down, or proposing to run down the north side of the road. Valerie, I think if you can skip ahead to a picture, it might help folks understand how we got here.
So
There we go. Okay, so here you're looking essentially from Maple Street, right, looking
Mhm.
east toward downtown. The existing line runs right down the right-hand lane, okay, almost in the middle. Which obviously we're
Yep.
trying to avoid and maintain traffic and do as much of the other things as we can with limited impact, okay? So what we're proposing is be on the, call it left-hand side of it.
Almost on the white line, so to
Exactly.
speak. That's a
Exactly.
huge green belt down through there.
Correct. And there's some huge trees down through there
Mhm.
that if it were in a different circumstance, I would probably say go right down the green belt, but I think you're gonna have some serious pushback from the.
Can you go back to our map?
Which one?
No, is that,
Right back on page one.
no, sorry, that's it. So we did get a grant for a scoping study, which would be to improve the sidewalk all the way down on the south side with the intent of running a new sidewalk all the way to the creamy stand.
Right.
But there's trees and more trees.
But there are more trees on the
Yeah, we're
north
gonna stay
side.
right in the pavement.
Yeah,
Just on the edge.
And I think West Street is wide enough where I'm gonna say you're gonna do 2 lanes of traffic, but almost,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we'll say that would be the goal, to maintain two-way traffic to the extent we can, right? And I think we can shift traffic, we'll probably shift the center line temporarily. We just
Right,
call
trying
them
to think of
barrels and-
Yeah.
Right, if we shift the center line, and as long as we can make 10 or 12 feet on the edge for us to work, we'll, I think we'll be able to work on that, and that's your major thoroughfare. I mean, when we're cutting off traffic there, and it's gonna happen at some point, but those are pretty big impacts.
We did, I think we had a conversation once, a brief conversation about possibly some of this work, especially the switch over here on Main Street, try to be done at night. And you'll talk about that in a few minutes, probably.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that section in a minute. And that really is up to you folks. I mean, that comes down to how do you wanna, portray this information to theirs? And what information you say, here's the things we can live with, here's the things we can't. And, everything comes down to money. If you're gonna say, hey, you gotta do this on weekends and nights, well, guess what?
More labor.
It's gonna cost more money. I think there's some things that we probably are going to run into those issues on. Yes, one intersection, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I think the switch over here from the corner of Main North and West, probably a night job. And maybe get an idea of what, from under the lake, West Street to Maple, what that section would cost at night versus day.
You mean this?
Yeah.
Would you care if we could do this with two-way traffic?
If you could do a 2-way traffic, yeah, I think I'd be okay with that.
I mean, I can see when we do some connections, right, we're out
Yeah.
toward the middle of the road, there's probably gonna be one-way traffic, and we're gonna have to work on that. Right, to say, okay, maybe that's a Saturday job, for instance, right? And we have to stop traffic in 2 directions and let one lane through at a time.
And actually, when it's not a school year, traffic is less here in town.
Yeah.
If this was a July project.
4th of July, there's not
After,
much traffic.
right after the 4th of July, right after that, yeah.
The people you have to direct.
We don't have a choice where we connect, right? We've got to connect in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
It's a given. I think the question is, how do we limit the impact at that point? And I think those are things, you're right, we should all talk about in terms of, when we get to the construction stage, and we're not there yet.
Right.
And this is,
The bit, yeah.
Is it in the right location, and have we considered everything we need to consider?
And the only thing at night that I would say, Joel, is you also be cognizant of noise for folks that are running, especially in the summertime, windows are open, and we hear noise complaints all the time on other things going on in the village, so working at night may not be.
We had complaints when they were doing the paving in that or something or other at night.
Oh, snow removal.
So that's just.
Well, they won't be doing the snow removal while they're putting the water.
That's right.
No.
We've eliminated that.
Okay. Let's move on next.
Maybe we could have them do it the same night.
Where's that in your book?
So here, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I'm just looking at Google Maps, you said that the amount of trees. If it's on the south side, green space, there would only be 1, potentially 2 trees that you might impact.
Right, correct. And one of the big concerns there was overhead power. Valerie, can you?
That's true, it's all the poles are on that side, so yeah, okay.
Here, just come back.
I think we could look at a couple of those photos. those. I think we missed them.
Yeah, no, all the power is there, so that's gonna be.
Yeah,
All right,
and you can see,
I mean, if you think of it, Ian, where that's probably Steve's truck park right there.
could be.
Yeah, there's quite a wide green space there
Yeah.
between there and down through. I mean, they parked there for church on Sunday. And
I'm
everything.
actually impressed Steve stood in the middle of the road to take that picture and didn't get hit.
Hope he had his vest
Stay there
on.
too long, trust me, stay there. That's fine.
There's no crosswalk there,
Yeah,
either,
no.
so it's up there. Yeah, okay.
Okay, if we could jump ahead to slide 2 of 2 for that. Yes, right there. Okay, so here's, I refer to this as a spaghetti intersection. Because there are so many utilities in this intersection, it makes my head spin.
I mean, under the light there.
Yes. Yeah, you've got buried fiber optic, you've got buried electric, you've got all of the controls for the lights.
Got a 4-foot sewer, got a 4-foot
Storm
water
sewer
main
through
coming
there,
down from.
you've got water
Main
main.
Street.
You've got-
54-inch.
Yeah, there's a lot.
54.
It is 54, not 48.
There's a lot going on in that little space. So this is the section we proposed to directionally bore. Okay, so to go with Joel's point, he's talking about we need to shut down the intersection. To try to get through there, you can do it. I mean, it's possible to go ahead and conventionally trench this, but you're gonna have to shore that whole thing. I mean, we're not gonna get a trench box in between these utilities, so we're gonna have to come in with plates and shoring, and it's a long, expensive endeavor. So I think directionally boring is a lot smarter, there's a lot less impact to folks. I would imagine they would do that as one of the first scopes of work, but we'll see. The goal would be to get underneath, and you can see, if you look at the profile underneath, you can see that 54-inch drain line that you're talking about in green right there, right? The existing water line, by the way, also dives underneath that line. That's what you see in the V right there in red. So that's the existing, they actually did a little jumper line in there back in, I can't remember when they did this. You said when was North Street done?
Oh.
20.
The big project, big
Before
project,
me.
2008, big dig up through.
So we're gonna say
2008.
it was the same project.
Right,
So the boring would go from the, this side to this side, correct? West,
Correct.
east to west?
And that's all you're doing at this point, because the rest of Main Street is on the east.
Bristol East, correct.
Okay.
So,
You
yeah,
gotta dig there,
right.
you gotta get under there, so
The idea was to
you're
get
gonna
to
bore
the,
to the west side of that
Right.
54-inch culvert.
correct. And the idea is that when we get to Bristol East, we'll have some sort of traffic detour, right, through this, I would imagine at that point, when we go down east, I would imagine we're gonna have some sort of detour at some point along Mountain Street, right, and come back to this intersection. So it'd be really nice if we didn't have to go back into this intersection as part of that project.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we can bring people up and around. So that was the goal, was really to try to get to the east side of the intersection.
So there's a lot.
Underneath that drain is gotta be all new pipe,
So
but you don't like it.
that's distribution. No, actually, we're gonna keep that. We're gonna hook into that. So everything coming down North Street, you can see the little, come right down north, come down,
Down towards south.
Stop. See that little jumper that goes off?
That little
Right
red
there.
jumper, yeah.
Yeah, it goes, keep going to the east. Nope, not south, east.
East, towards your right.
No, yeah, there you
There you
go.
go.
There you go, all the way over to the blue line, that's new.
Okay.
Right now. So
Okay.
what, call it Green Mountain Engineering designed and put in back in 2008, I guess. Came down North Street, came underneath that existing storm line, or, well, it was new at the time. And comes back into what we've shown in blue, where his little hand is right there on the screen.
So right there, you're gonna bore from about, what, post office somewhere in that area? 100 feet or so?
Yeah, you'll see, we're tying in.
Right about there?
Yeah, just in front of the post office, a little further to the east than post office, about 175 feet, I think.
Then they'll have to cut the culvert in, or cut the hydrant in, or you eliminate that hydrant.
Where, yeah, sorry.
Right on the corner.
We're adding a new one right to the left. See that blue line?
Yeah.
That's a new hydrant.
That'll be cut into that HTP.
That'll be cut into the, I think that is, where do we transition? We transition just on the other side of it, I think.
The other side of that drain.
The other side of the hydrant. Where do we transition? Sorry.
Is the hydrant that blue line with the big, with the
Yeah.
black circle?
Yeah.
Or blue, dark blue, whatever it is.
Dark
Who's running the
I'm
finger
having a
there?
hard time seeing
Pointing?
What am I doing?
There,
Oh, here, yeah.
right there.
There you
I
go.
think that's the hydrant, right?
Yeah,
And we're tying
existing
in,
one.
we're tying
Or
in.
that's a new one.
there should be a note, I can't see that note from here, but is there a
There
note?
no, there
where
it
it
says where we're
transitions?
tying in.
Is it, yeah, I can't read it, no, that's me.
Concrete. You got a computer
Transition
right there.
to, yeah, I don't have it up on my
It's
computer.
probably
does.
just on the other side of the hydrant.
Transition to 12 something on something. And then propose.
It doesn't
propose
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Proposed hydrant assembly C detail.
There we go.
So those,
See page 2.
so that next green, that is a, that's a 8-foot catch basin with 4 foot of stone around the outside of it.
Where you at?
You're talking
The
in North
green line
Street?
to the west of the, where you're
Just-
talking to connected.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
one.
right there. I almost,
That
That's
is,
pretty deep.
it should be called out right there. I'm
it's
sorry, I
not
can't-
very
I
deep.
can't read
Is
that.
it?
Valerie, could you please zoom in on that?
That is the,
Enhance.
that's a
Enhance.
15-inch pipe that goes across and there's an 8-foot, drywall.
It says
basically.
15-inch
Where-
HDPE.
Right there, that
Yeah.
line is 15-inch that goes across.
Yeah.
And that, right where the cursor is, that's a 8-foot drywall with 4 foot of stone around it.
Okay, good to know.
Steve,
We may have to shift. it
leave
around a
that
little bit.
and pose like that.
That's what I was saying, maybe there's nothing hitching in, maybe we go back just a little bit further in directional boring under all that.
Right, we still need to avoid the structure though.
Yeah,
Steve, what's, where the red is, where it says transition to 12-inch DR dash
there's
line?
also an 8-footer back on the end of Cool Street.
Yeah, it should say transition.
And there's also
12-inch
one in front of the post office too.
DR9 HDPE.
Just before the post
Other
office.
side of the road, doesn't matter.
So that answers Speaker's question too. Speaker's question was about the hydrant, original question.
Yeah,
Okay, so we transition right to the right of the hydrant.
okay, yeah, I see it's transition.
Yeah, so the idea was to have the hydrant on the 12-inch PVC.
So we're
Well,
putting
that's
in,
why I-
we're
that
putting in
was the only reason.
PVC. I kind of read that. It's like, that's what we're putting in?
Yeah, that's what we've put everywhere else. It doesn't. It's,
You don't have to look.
I just, no, I'm just asking because we're always about copper and this
Well,
and that,
the
so I'm
feed
just
lines,
like.
the houses.
well, the thing is that pipe, that stuff doesn't build up in it. It's a little more forgiving if the ground shifts, whereas you take a
Ductile
piece of ductile iron, if the ground shifts, the pipe's gonna shear. That's not
I was
saying,
just
that's not,
asking. I would just
check
read
it,
it
it's
and I
good.
was like,
that's not saying that the plastic won't shear, cause it will.
oh, yeah.
What's the, where the red is, where the dotted lines,
That's the old one.
that's the old hydrant.
Correct.
Why can't it go back there? I asked the question because you're eliminating 3 parking spots where the new one's gonna go.
So Speaker's point was.
12-inch on a 12-inch main.
Yeah, but we have to tie into the HDPE. Remember, the HDPE line right there is diving.
It's going deeper, deep.
From there, it starts to the main street.
It starts
Under the
going,
light.
it starts going down to getting under the, because they're
Yeah.
boring it, it starts going down to miss all the traffic control stuff and everything.
So if that's,
And then comes back up on the other side of the drain.
Can we,
I guess I'm,
Yeah.
don't wanna wait, lose 3 parking spots.
right,
so let me ask you this, why couldn't, if that's your concern, and we could address that, what if we put an elbow in and bring that hydrant down along the edge of sidewalk? Yep, and bring it, and put it more or less where it is today.
yeah. let's
Would
do
that
that.
work?
Do it right there,
Yeah.
where it is now,
And just bring
and
it
come
here.
diagonal back over to the blue line. Could you do that?
You don't diagonal with that stuff. You go and you put in 45s or 90s.
Well, okay.
So you run it to here, and then you just run it down here.
Correct.
Keep it, yeah, that'd be great.
I'm,
I agree. It's in a perfect spot. Right-
It is.
Right in that corner.
Peter knows, we fill up with that all the time.
Yeah.
It's just south of town.
Well, the other side is, like you said, you'd have to give up the parking places.
Yeah.
And we
I'm concerned
can't,
about that.
we can't put parking places closer to the intersection anyway, so we can't make them up.
Right. Yeah, that's Val's parking spot right there, so,
I mean, the handicap?
No, this is great.
Not yet.
Well,
We're
we
gonna-
actually, you know,
I'm talking about this one.
actually, if we take Val's
That's
car
what
and
I'm
we put an adapter on it, she can just drive up the hydrant and we'll open the trunk and hook the hose in.
Just through the car. Perfect.
A special way of detailing.
Well, could we
Hydro
get,
detailing.
Peter, maybe we could get an electric charging station there beside the hydrant, so when we get an electric fire truck, we can charge up the same day.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide.
Sure, we can't make it before.
Believe me, they do have them.
What was it?
They do have them.
With an onboard diesel generator, the engine is about 1.8 million.
And they last about 3 hours at a fire pump.
Okay.
That's why they have the
You're
diesel
done. Let's keep
generator.
moving along. We're good.
Okay.
Time schedule.
Where we going next?
All right, we're on to Munsell. Okay, so Munsell is not really straightforward, but we had a lot of challenges. about
We
it.
figured this one out when we did the
The
sidewalk
sidewalk, that's
scoping
right.
study.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more going on in Munsell than you realize, but essentially, we ended up on the east side of the street, right? So you can see the blue.
East side?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, the blue and the green.
to
West,
me,
you mean?
That's the west
Steven,
side.
that.
Your
that
blue
road
lines
is
are
in
the
terrible
west side.
shape.
No, they're not.
That road's in terrible shape.
This way is east.
Yeah.
To me, you go
Oh,
right
so-
in the middle.
Okay,
And
so
we'll cough it up for.
West
pavement,
Street's
we'll
down
pave it
there.
like we did
Yeah,
Pine Street,
okay.
Grind it, pave it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
you and I are looking at the
I
same
know.
thing. It's like, what do you mean?
Hold on, we got about 40 conversations.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Laura, could we just move on to a picture so we can all visually see? There we go.
Is that it, Munsell?
So the east was also the selection for the sidewalk. That's what
Mhm.
it came out of that scoping study. That was the only,
Yeah.
we looked at both sides and everything was,
Not that anybody wanted
we-
it on that road.
We originally tried to run down the west side of the road right along the edge of the greenbelt.
okay.
The existing line runs almost right through there, and that was really our challenge, right?
Mhm.
And remember, this is a 120-year-old water line, so half the time you don't want to breathe on this
Oh,
stuff.
just
right?
take the old one
Bad
out.
things happen. Jill would get really mad at me if we were very close to it.
Gonna do it.
I see her
What are
laughing
you gonna
in
do?
the
Have porta potties all the way up through
That's
this
right.
every house?
It's not technically my madness. It's all your residents on that road that would be without water for the month and a half that would be making me cuckoo, and then you too.
Oh, can't we just hook up to the hoses to the
Yeah,
houses
get a
behind them?
couple 100,000 feet, a couple thousand feet
Keep
of
it behind
garden
them.
hose and
Timing.
be all set.
Can we go back to the
So
diagram?
the east side was not my preference.
Okay.
Because we have some utility issues in there, right? We've
Yeah.
got existing poles that run along there. They're gonna come in, you know, these are pretty big excavators they're gonna run, right?
And you're in the green space, right? Or as
Yeah.
much as you can be?
Think about trying to work underneath those power lines though, with those, right? You're trying to.
They come down pretty easy.
The power lines?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
They,
It's just-
there's a little bit of sparking goes on when they come down, but that stops pretty quick too.
We didn't have a heck of a, I mean, it was either dead center of the road or offset, right? And we decided it would be easier to offset it and we'd have some remote chance of getting one-way traffic.
And then
And we're
you,
gonna do the work.
Did you see the scoping study that was done? Did you have that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had, at one point,
Hooray!
we had a draft showing where that sidewalk might go.
Yeah, okay, good.
so where do you go on the other end of Munsell?
We
They
told
told
them
us
to
to stop.
stop.
Zip it
That's a
up.
1974 line.
Oh, so you don't have to do that one, okay,
Correct. We just need to
Ah.
got
cross,
it.
That's handy.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, look at
we
that.
just need to cross the intersection, that's it,
Yep,
Got it.
okay, okay.
okay?
Here again,
That's for a board 50 years down the road.
How am I?
Bigger will still be on.
Ian will still be here.
Doesn't feel like it.
Is, you know, taking the factor, like I said, that street, the lower half isn't that great. We're gonna tear up most of it, or at least the eastbound lane coming north on that street to West Street with new drainage.
Yep.
I would really consider going up the middle and do like we did Pine Street, just grind the whole street when you're
He
done.
intends to grind that anyway. when it's-
Right, so instead of trying to go up, I understand you want to keep one-way traffic and I really respect that. But I mean, we got through it on Pine Street. We just went up the next street and came in.
Well, we pretty much
Closed
kept
it
one-way.
block to
I mean,
block.
we had flags.
Yeah, you
so
did.
we-
Yeah, you
we
did a
didn't have
great
very often
job.
that we didn't have one-way traffic. I mean.
Well,
look at the
if
way
you
we-
did it down the middle, how much easier does it make that particular road? Given the power lines that are along there.
And you don't want it in the northbound lane, do you? Because that's where the structures are gonna be going and the 2-foot culvert over the top of them.
I'm here to work for you folks if you.
No, I'm asking, hey, you're the engineer. I'm asking
Joel,
you.
are you saying from west all the way up?
To Munsell.
Just have it
West-
centered or?
Yes, center, because the structures are gonna be in that northbound lane.
Yeah.
No, there's no structure. See the green?
Yeah, we're off, you're talking about future drainage structures?
Right.
You're off in the green.
No, I'm not saying future, they're going in the same time. I thought they're going in the same time.
I don't know that that's true. Am I including
I
this?
think
That was their contention.
I think the drainage structures were intended to go in first.
Okay.
Right.
Beforehand.
But not part of
But he
the
talked
No,
about
but separately.
put them
Separate
in
initiative.
as an add-on to the water, by the contractors there. He's putting in water and he can go right down through, put structures in. He was,
Kind of like what we did on West.
Eric.
Eric, had proposed asking that as a price.
Yeah.
Amended.
Put them at the
addendum.
same time and maybe the same contractor will sit on both.
I'm right here, slap them right in.
Yeah.
Is that
And you got
something-
that street, you can't, if you're digging the drainage, you're halfway up the street.
Well, they're not. The drainage is right in the green space. The drainage is not.
That's what it
in-
looks like on.
Right.
Yeah, right
It's
there.
here. Yeah.
That was the goal, keep it out of the asphalt. We could.
And the
Future
drainage
catch
is
basins,
not,
yeah.
Drainages don't
the
work very
drainage
well.
is not nearly as deep, so they don't have the issues with the poles.
Oh, okay, we didn't think of that, but you're gonna be away from those, you're gonna be west of the structures.
There's no structures down through there.
Well, I would think we'd put one in.
No,
There
see
are-
where the catch basins are off on
There
the
are
side.
few-
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I think
they're
it's
not
only-
immediately there. There's nothing down there.
I think we added.
We're gonna
one.
let that run all the way down.
No, I think we added one.
There's
We
some up
wanted a
there.
clean out structure somewhere. I'm
There's a
pretty
cou-
sure
there's a
to
couple
go
up on the
down.
top.
I'm thinking going
Can't
south
see
on
that
that
street.
street.
Sorry, but-
I only see those two. I don't see
I see,
another one.
yeah, I see two. Oh, no, there's one. Yeah, 3.
There's 3.
There's one down at the other end toward west, correct? Yes, right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mm.
And then we tie into the existing structure.
I'd say if it, I mean, since we have a heck of a lot of cross streets and it's a small section, if it is beneficial to putting it nearer the center, I would maybe look at that, you know, with the potential for saving money and again, for tying in with that drainage project. And then you don't have to deal with all the power poles and things like that.
And my thought, back to the structures is, I mean, that's a couple hundred feet run between the last one from the West Street corner all the way up to Munsell almost, or West Pleasant, is to put one in halfway. While you're going by, time it. Instead of water running down the road, getting to the
You
next
don't
structure.
necessarily have to put in, although if you did put in one of those dry wells, it would eat more water. Less water is gonna make it to West Street.
Okay.
Okay,
Just a thought.
You saw the structures we put in on Vine, right?
I did.
I mean, that's what we're talking about putting.
With piping in between them.
Yeah. So if the rain is more than what the structure could take, then it acts as a catch basin.
So with this particular project, do we have an opportunity to reshape the Pleasant Munsell intersection there in terms of sidewalk? Remember in the scoping
Oh,
study?
the sidewalk comes, yeah,
Because it's this, yeah. I mean, when you're stopping here, you can't really see much. It'd be lovely to be able to sort of reshape these if we're digging this all up. And we have the guidance from our scoping study, which is sidewalk all along there. Even if we not doing a sidewalk, we could just sort of take some of the designs that were done. You know, these are pretty good here. You've got good sight. This is a house right here and there's no sidewalk, obviously, but your sidewalk's hanging up here. It'd be great to reshape that so it's safer for pedestrians walking. I mean, on both sides, since it's all gonna be dug up.
Yeah, and the drainage works as well.
Yeah,
'Cause now
right.
it's-
And there's no water,
It's a big
big,
problem,
big,
isn't
big swimming pools right there.
Right.
But yeah, just a thought.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's it. This,
Lovely.
are you here just to listen to Taylor?
Yes.
Why don't we, is it okay with everybody?
Sure.
We just jump ahead to Taylor? So,
Do you need to look at me?
because Maple's kind of long, yeah. Taylor, there we go. Okay. Okay, so from Pleasant Street, yeah, we're working obviously from south to north here, right? So it's Pleasant on your left.
Yep.
Elm Street's in the middle,
Mhm.
okay? And Pine Street, obviously, we'll get to in the next slide. There are 3 trees, I believe, with this alignment, and this is probably something this gentleman may have some concerns with, right? 3 trees along this segment that would be impacted by this. There'll be some trees that need to be trimmed as well.
But you're only replacing one.
That's why you haven't seen them yet.
Oh, okay.
There's only one being taken out, so there's 2 more in the next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, and we're proposing, by the way, to more or less run down the east side of the street, sorry.
Okay.
How come you have a little jog there, just?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Let me zoom in on that. There's a conflict somewhere there. Oh, there's the next slide.
Right here.
Yeah.
Where's that?
I can't see from here. We wouldn't have done a jog unless, oh, I know why. So we were coming down the edge. Think of it starting from right to left instead of left to right, okay?
Yeah.
There's a fence and a whole bunch of trees.
Yeah.
Right, and we decided we're probably.
Stay away from them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're gonna get a lot of pushback there.
Yeah.
And you'll see those in the pictures on that.
Mhm.
So we're trimming a tree there as we go up, and then we've got the one at the very end, or at the end of the slide rather, there, okay.
To be removed
Yeah,
and
and
replaced.
here's our next one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there's 2 more. And there was a lot of discussion about this when we were working on the design of this, because some of these trees, these 2 right here, I mean, they're beautiful trees in front of historic houses. It's not an easy thing. So, you know, if we go to the pictures, Larry, maybe we can kind of see, I think you get a good sense of why this is where we had to jog out into the roadway. We were just talking about the jog. So here's the trees on your right. That's not a great picture of them, but there's a big fence in there as well.
Right.
All right.
There's the fence.
If we go to the next one, I think I have one there we go. That's better.
Oh, it's that one.
Okay. There are some of the trees.
Are there only those 3 trees there?
No,
No.
there's more than those.
But they're the
those are
biggest ones.
Those are the 3 that and we're not proposing to go through the middle of the trees. The forester said to me, Steve, they're not gonna survive, right? You're within 2 feet of the trunk of the tree. You're gonna take out 50% of the root system of that tree.
Mhm.
And then you're gonna leave it with no way to hold that side of the tree in if you get it, you know.
Right.
You're saying if you're in the road.
No, around the edge.
Our proposal was to run right down the edge, and we were trying to stay to the extent possible out of much of the roadway, just because it's so narrow. And we've got all the utilities on the west side of the roadway, right?
Here again,
We're gonna repave the road.
right, and I really commend you guys to really trying to keep some traffic open, but this is a little tiny side street during the day. Those trees took 100 years to grow, and they make pavement every day, and I know it's a cost, I get that part of it.
Well, taking the trees down is.
There's a cost too.
But Joey, that pavement's the same age as when you did Elm Street, so it's only 2-3 year old.
I know, if this was down in the 27, 28 era, maybe that's 3 to 4 years later, we got a little more life out of that. I respect you doing that. I'm gonna comment when we get to Maple, because Maple's beat up now. They can't wait for pavement till 28. As Eric said, if we don't pave it by 26, I'm doing it myself.
Can you go back to the?
But, no, I respect you, Steve, but I think for a little bit of paving cost versus.
That's what this is all about.
And it
right?
may
This
not be,
comes down to,
if we got the contractor to do a little better job of tamping it. And it wouldn't settle like Pine Street. Pine Street was
you
a
mean at the
mess.
house.
Oh, and Pine Street was a mess anyway, before they paved it, before they dug a water line. It needed paving for 15 years. Those streets, they maybe had to cut it. And vibratory roll it with a big roller and then put a skim coat over it for a couple of years, not have to do like as much work as we did in Pine Street.
The issues I saw there at the house.
Right.
Right.
If we went in the middle of the street, can we save those trees?
Yes. Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, and that's what this comes down to. It's a balancing act, right? You're gonna add 30 or $40,000 of cost of the
Well,
project.
that's what I was just gonna say. What is the cost? We're talking about 3 trees. I look at the number, 3 trees, it's 30 grand at least. And you just paid to pave it 3 years ago. It just seems like you're throwing away a lot of good money for 3 trees. I don't mean to sound cold.
I'll bet it costs you 15,000 to get those 3 trees down.
Yeah.
It might.
And I think-
Minimum 5,000 a tree to get rid of the tree and the stump.
And then put one in.
Then put one
And
in.
then put one in, so yeah.
And the feedback and the, you know, like I said, it took a lot of years to grow. And to me, if that street's not in terrible shape, you're right, Chris, it was 3 or 4 years ago, we paved that street. If we just cut it and then repaved that section, and then a couple of years, we just skim coat with 1.5 inches over, not have the amount of expense that we have in Pine Street, because that street, as I said, was a terrible mess before they got started. We don't have to grind Taylor and Allen if we went down the middle. I'd like to
These
see-
2 houses yours by chance?
What's that?
Do you live in one of these 2 houses?
Yeah. Across the street.
Randy, yeah, you were there, what do you think? I'm gonna ask.
Well,
In public's
we
opinion.
just spent thousands to have a big tree taken down right next to our driveway. Last year, but there's some other people there, I know, they're beautiful trees, but something's gotta go.
Yeah.
You know, there's several of them there, on the opposite side of Taylor too.
And I'd like to hear the forest, I'd like to see our tree warden say the health of those.
Well, that's what the other question I'm gonna say, how close have you looked at them? A lot of our older trees are aging out.
Like Chris's tree did look like it needed some work, it needed a.
It needed
It needed to
a
be trimmed
trim
about
job
that.
at the stump.
At the stump, yeah. I used to say, trim that about 1/2 inch off the ground, that'll look good.
Well, I think part of it, if we're talking about 2 trees, I think it's easy to reach out to the property owners and speak with them. You know, for Chris's one, talking about his tree, he lives there, he can give us direct feedback. He may have said, no, I don't want that tree taken down, you know, is it possible to work around? So I think reaching out for this particular occasion and just getting feedback and looking more closely at it.
Yeah, I mean, if the trees aren't healthy and we're gonna end up taking them down in the next 4 or 5 years, now would be the time to roll it
Yeah.
into the project.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a number, if it's rolled into the project, it's probably, is it a cost of the project that can be forgiven, or is it? Huh?
Yes.
Roll it in.
Replacing with income, yes.
But I do think that if the trees are healthy, there are important reasons to keep them. I mean, it takes a long time to grow a tree like that gives you shade. And as we get hotter and hotter summers, these streets are gonna be baking.
Yeah.
You know, like these trees make a big difference. They drop the temperature by like 10 degrees in some instances. And so if they're healthy, it might be worthwhile to go around them, because those ginkgo trees, I mean, how long is it gonna take for them to get that big?
Yeah.
You know, really,
They don't get that big.
yeah,
They don't get that big anyway.
no, I mean, they're pretty, but they don't provide shading, so.
Yeah, and we haven't had roads that we talked about where we've had specific things about some of the trees, because you've done a great job in terms of avoiding. So I think in a couple of cases, we can look at this and just see what the potential is for saving them.
And
Right,
And
and
we-
see what the tree health
Yeah.
is, like, does it make sense to take them down, or are they healthy?
The one on the left is not very healthy. The one on the right
Okay.
is, and it's in front of a home that has been completely restored. It's beautiful. It's-
Mhm.
you know, if you go up the middle,
It really is.
Yeah.
and then you grind the whole street, it becomes from a 20-foot wide street to a 22, like Taylor Avenue, or like Pine Street became.
Yeah.
Wish I had a picture of that one. I don't. But-
Okay,
Okay, I've got a note in here, and
Okay.
I'll work with
Okay.
Valerie and we'll sort out how to do that.
right. Thank you. Any more?
We gotta go
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
to
they
Maple.
gotta
Oh, we gotta go back there.
Just Maple.
Oh, you got one of them there.
That's good pressure.
Now back, you gotta go back to Maple, because we didn't do Maple.
Oh,
We
right,
jumped through that.
right. Did you have any questions or anything that you wanted to ask?
No, I think I'm all right. I just, even though, like I say, we had a big tree that was pretty close to the road, had to take it down, but I know a lot of the people on the street. I was just wondering what was gonna happen, because some of them are a little, you know,
Yeah.
touchy about their trees.
Right.
Well, they're attached to them.
You know?
Takes a long time to grow a tree.
What?
Takes a long
I
time.
know, I
Growing that
know,
healthy.
I know.
2 generations, you know, getting that size.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, Steve.
Okay.
Maple.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Aaron.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as this project progresses, there'll be information on the town website as we get towards it. And then similar to Pine, where it was very well organized in terms of letting residents know when construction was happening and how long it might take. We'll do all that process again for this project at a much larger scale, since there are a lot more roads that we're dealing with.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we won't show up and start digging.
With a chainsaw in the morning.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, all right.
And don't feel you have to leave, Randy. You can stay if you want. It's riveting. This is riveting.
All right,
Okay.
Maple.
Okay, Maple, this is one of our longer streets, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of trees on this street.
There are, and this goes out, obviously, this section all the way from west to Pine. So, Valerie, I think it's been, I should have reversed the order, sorry, maybe put the pictures ahead of time, but is it easier to look at pictures and then people can visualize and then we jump back to these? I don't know.
Doesn't matter. I think we know the roads.
Okay. Well,
We know the drill now.
we're connecting right on the very left-hand side. You can see some drainage there. There's some conflicts with the existing drainage work right away. So we need to remove and replace the existing drain line. By law, we need a minimum of 18 inches of separation. We go right to the middle of that line. And
Is
it
that
would
one of
be,
those ones you gotta go under?
yeah, exactly. And it would be pretty costly for us to do that. So we decided it'd be cheaper to remove the drain line.
Remove it and replace it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna do that. Obviously, the existing runs more or less right down the middle of the street. That's red, right? And we're proposing to run the edge of pavement on the west side of the street. And if you look at some photos, I think we'll get a good feel for why.
The street's terrible.
Yeah. Okay,
Especially from church up.
Yeah.
From there up, it's terrible shape.
exactly.
It
So
gets
there's-
worse as you
there's
go,
church.
you go north.
So you're going along the power line, right? Side, but
Well, that
we're
was
seeing
right-hand
it
lane.
here.
Yeah, you can see the poles are offset
Yeah,
probably 4 feet from the edge of asphalt.
so you're going all the
They
way.
should be fine.
Yeah, we're gonna be in the asphalt, but just barely.
Okay.
That's the proposal.
You say right in the center is the old one.
Yeah, if we chose the other side of the street, we're into every one of those.
Right,
trees.
no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Stay right in that right-hand lane,
Yeah.
like a couple of feet off the edge.
Right, again, it's all a balancing act, right?
Yep.
And actually, two of the big trees that are down on the end of Maple came down in the last storm, so you don't even have those to worry about.
I think there's one more slide, one more picture maybe. Yeah, there we go.
See, as I said, it keeps going north, keeps getting
Yeah,
worse.
there's Pleasant Maple. So, and by the way.
And the
poles-
power crosses.
Yeah, the pole switch, right, exactly.
Which will help you.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's helpful.
Okay.
Okay, so we could go back.
To the drawing.
There we go. Get a pretty good feel.
Yeah.
We've got some sidewalk conflicts here. You can see the little boxes. Yeah, right there. You see little boxes. That's what we're anticipating. We're gonna have conflicts. We've got to tie into those existing lines, right? New curb stops. And obviously,
Curb stop's gonna be on in the green belt, between the sidewalk and the edge of the road.
yeah, Valerie can zoom in there, please. You'll see, that's exactly what we're proposing. See where it says CS?
Yeah.
There you go.
And then tie in. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the angle.
CS means curb stop?
Country store.
Cotton socks.
So it's pretty straightforward all the way up, I think. Same approach. Let me zoom on to the next slide unless there's any questions.
We sneak out in the center a little bit there and then back over.
Well, we didn't want to have a cross, right?
Yeah.
We were trying to have
Okay.
T's rather than a cross. So that was our approach to that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We probably could have gone the other way just as easily, but
But you went that way.
there's a big tree on that corner, if I remember.
Yeah.
There's two big trees, one on each side of the road. Yeah, you can see them, actually. It's kind of going,
What's this little green thing?
that's a dry well.
There is one there.
There's a couple of them up and down that street.
Mhm.
Literally, I think those were corrugated metal pipe with some stone around them.
Yeah.
It was
High tech.
That works.
Still a dry well.
It works. Yep, and we're tying in to Pine Street right there.
But-
So,
But staying on that side of the road, so big if if we ever had to put some drainage from, the intersection of Maple and Pleasant headed south in that lane, we could do it on the east side of Maple,
could we go back one?
because there's nothing in
Sorry,
there.
to
After
understand
that,
Joel's trying to explain. There you go.
there's no drainage, as you said, there's drainage that hooks on to West Street from the Maple Street intersection.
Yep.
What Maple Street, West Pleasant intersection, then there's nothing on north of Maple. If we ever wanted to, years down the road, we said, we gotta do the same thing we did on 111.
Yeah, are there
Some
drainage
drainage.
issues there today?
No, there's not. No, I'm not saying, but if we,
Not today.
not today, but you could put that in the northbound lane of Maple and not affect a lot of stuff.
I think we can zoom on to the end here, right?
Okay, you only been an hour, so it's all right. I'll wait, put you 30 minutes on.
It was a lot too.
No, actually, I think I bumped it to an hour.
Yeah, there's quite a bit.
Did you? Yeah, well, mine says 30 here.
No,
This is-
you're
this
the
is-
one above it.
Draft.
Helpful for me.
Next one down.
One more.
Well, his is draft,
Number
so that
three.
was, that was old.
Oh, I don't know, we get about 5 of these before I know which one's the right one.
The one that doesn't say draft.
I didn't print that one off today, but now, yeah.
There's probably one here somewhere.
Sorry.
Getting punchy.
Yeah.
One more, please.
You did. Thank you.
Oh, that's a good one.
on the-
Yeah. Good night.
So I think I've showed that to you before. That's one of the service lines, yeah. So that was a little
Well,
piece. That was a 12-inch piece that Joe and I cut off from Pine Street. You couldn't see daylight through one end or the other. But
That
they
was
were,
to
they
a
were
house.
using it, they were still getting water. through it.
How is anyone getting water through that? I don't understand
And
that.
that service line was, what?
Remember that thing with the
that pipe was
marbles and
made
the
out of what?
stones and the stands and the sand?
Oh.
That's what that is.
Ian, look at that pipe he's holding in his hand. That was made out of, what was that, Steve, again? Galvanized. You see why we wanna go copper to the houses?
Mhm. PVC.
Yeah, that particular homeowner told us
God.
they couldn't run more than one appliance at a time.
You wonder
So
why?
if they did the wash, you couldn't take a shower. If
Yeah.
you can see
That's
why,
not
right?
Couldn't shave if you flushed the toilet, so.
Well, you can.
Can't draw any water.
Okay.
Great.
Just that wraps up.
Just have
Sorry to
to
kick so long.
rinse your-
I've got some good
No,
comments.
I-
for
because
folks.
rinse it out, rinse
Actually, I have to go back
razor,
out because I have a comment on
Um,
the next document and I saved it somewhere.
What do you, so
I don't know
Val,
if
what
we-
does he need? Permission?
Do we
Continue.
need a motion to approve subject to the comments? Probably wouldn't hurt at least, would it? We'd have it in the record for.
Sure.
What do you want?
The
Approval of what now?
90% completion.
Let me just,
Okay.
let me just,
Subject to the comment.
hold on before we take some comments, or before we take a motion. Is there anything from on the Zoom? Anybody, you watched an hour of presentation?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
all right, I'd entertain a motion to accept what we've been presented so far.
So moved.
Second.
Is a motion and a second to accept our 90% design plans from Steve Palmer. Any questions for Steve for the last one? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, abstain, okay.
Super.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
very
You're gonna
Yes.
stay for the next one, are you?
For sure.
Bristol West Water Line Replacement Project necessity resolution for November 5th bond vote. Valerie, you've got that
Right,
language, do you?
yeah, so hopefully folks had a chance to look at the draft.
Can you put it up?
Yeah.
Because I had a question and then I shut my computer down.
Okay.
So, it's like-
And I published, I posted online that the initial draft, and then we heard from our bond counsel. And he thought it was fine, the description of the project was fine, and the highlighted numbers are, we didn't know what the figure was at the time, so this just needs to be updated to reflect the number that we want to actually present for the bond vote, which is what, 4 million? What did you recommend?
3,589, but were there additional, I didn't know if there were additional costs the town add above and beyond that? Is there financing costs or anything?
I mean, 4 million is very conservative.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds like a lot to me.
It is.
Val's just juggling just so much money.
3.95 sounds a lot better.
Really? Like $39.99 instead of 40? Well, whatever.
Can you go up just a minute? Yeah. You say the town voters, submitted to the town voters. I know we all have, the whole town has to vote on it. There was something in there that I thought it said something about payment or by the town voters, and I'm like, yeah, but the whole town voters are not paying it.
I actually, I know what you're talking about. I
Okay.
thought the same thing.
Maybe you take it out.
Let's see. Qualified, submitted to the qualified voters of the town, not to exceed. That doesn't say that. Let's see. Was it?
I just wanted to make sure that if that's in there, that it was right.
Right.
Ultimate taxpayer cost of this project, to reduce the ultimate taxpayer cost of this project. Maybe, and that, maybe that's what I was thinking. It's like, well, it's not all the taxpayers, it's the water
Well,
district.
if the district
Payers.
went under, that's the thing, the town is still obligated for the bond.
Mhm.
But it needs to be some, I agree with you, Michelle, it has to say something in there that to be paid for, borne, the cost of this project is to be borne by the water users of the district, water district.
By the water district.
Yeah.
But,
So in that
Right.
now,
When you say the
therefore,
water
be a
district.
resolved paragraph.
Users.
Yeah. Into the project.
For capital
Should be
improvement.
submitted to the town voters at a special town meeting, which is true, which is what we're going to do. Not to exceed, let's see. The town will frequently.
Yeah, the only place I saw was up above where the cost be borne by the taxpayers.
Let me do a word search. Let's see. Tax.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Mhm. Yeah, that one, that spot right there.
Yeah.
Would you say water user then?
To reduce the ultimate ratepayer cost? Ratepayer.
Water department.
I'd
Wouldn't
say
you- wouldn't you
water.
use
Just,
water
we just take
district or water
taxpayer
district?
out, just the ultimate cost of this project. Like you don't need taxpayer in there.
Yeah.
I just take taxpayer out.
Yeah,
Then you don't have to worry about replacing.
because it's not the
right,
taxpayers that are looking for the reduced costs. it's
Right.
the-
Right, the town is looking for that.
right. Ultimate cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that'll fix it.
Yeah, Ruby. This is a PDF, so I can't do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But somewhere it's gonna say this project is, the cost of the project will be borne by the
It won't say it in this, but.
water users of the district.
Well, we didn't with Pine Street, and this is the
Yeah.
exact language from Pine
Okay.
Street.
Mhm.
So,
Other than that, that was my only comment.
no, that was a good one. And so the attorney's comment was, come on, cheapers. Just these little edits, minor edits,
Mhm.
Okay.
just fine.
And so the public information meetings, that's where we're going to explain that we're trying to get financing for the project.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's where we're gonna explain it. Ian's gonna go up to the state house loaded for bear if we don't get 50% forgiveness, and they're gonna come and cuff him the next day.
Can I bring Michelle with me?
I'll have somebody in my office on speed dial for you.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
It's already frustrating
I
with
mean,
the last email we
it's
got.
expensive enough. You'd think we'd actually qualify for forgiveness now.
Yeah.
Oh, you just needed to spend a little bit more.
Yeah, just a little bit more.
We're spending more in our
If we-
users.
if we hear that
will
again.
Match their
Okay.
calculations.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion, we approve the necessity resolution for the November 5
As adjusted.
bond vote as adjusted.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. The bond vote, any discussion?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
No.
How much?
How much is the bond for?
You tell us,
So the estimates, it's like, which I laid out for you guys.
right, that's the next item.
3.6 million, oh, I'm sorry. Did I
So,
got
sort of,
that?
it's actually, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it would have been this one, we just didn't cover it.
Oh.
Under the hearing, we didn't cover the costs.
Tell us now.
Yeah, so what's the bond's gonna be?
So I included.
Not to exceed?
7% contingency
Let me,
in there as
let me
well.
pull that up since we're going
Okay,
there.
just to give you, so, I always try to find a project that's pretty similar. Pine Street was pretty similar in terms of construction, right? We've got some extras here that we didn't have in Pine Street. So, we've got cost of inflation that's happened over the last, let's say it's 3 years between then and by the time we did this. We were at about $295 a linear foot. When I just think about the main, right, it's a good planning number, right? And I go, okay, you got a really low bid. And I think that was an outlier. I don't think you're.
We're not gonna do that this time?
For planning purposes, I wouldn't use those numbers.
You wouldn't use that foot cost.
Not for planning purposes, right? I think that, I think you're gonna leave yourself short. If we threw out the low number and the high number, they were both kind of outliers. We would have been about $325 a foot.
3.25.
So this came in at about $380 a foot. Remember, we got a bunch of 12-inch pipe here as opposed to all 8-inch on Pine Street. We've got a bunch of curb and sidewalk to replace in this that we didn't have in there. We've got trees, we've got, some drainage structures, we've got other things. So in my mind, I just kind of sit there and say, okay, is that bottom line number, does it seem reasonable based on what we've got over here on Pine Street? I think it does. And we're gonna be 20% higher.
But you said you added 7%, did you add 7% into all these numbers, or you're saying at the end, we should add 7%?
So the 2,966,000,
Mhm.
that includes a 7% contingency. And I normally at this stage would say 5. We haven't gotten the reports back on environmental, and we haven't gotten the reports back on archaeology. And I think archaeology, I'm hoping that archaeology just gets waived. That's what we're shooting for. And the environmental is scheduled to be done the first week of October.
Can we say not to exceed?
Well, that's what the
4
bond vote
million,
says,
yeah.
not to exceed, subject to reduction by blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And if it did exceed, then it comes out of capital.
Peter, you've been here a long time, what do you think? You're erring, you're trying to say something.
Well, I don't want to be shy and I mean, we're supposed to be eligible for forgiveness this time.
Right.
But if it ends up not being 50, or if it ends up
Something less.
something less,
20%.
we need to make sure we have enough
To cover it,
to
right?
cover it.
Right.
But we have to bond for the total cost of the project.
Right.
So I would,
Doesn't mean we have to use the whole bond.
right.
Right,
So if
and
he's
also,
saying-
I don't know that the bond expires, so if it takes longer than you expect, if it takes 5 years instead of, but hopefully not, but,
Well, if it.
Well, if
yeah.
we're waiting on the state to give us forgiveness, it could take 5 years.
yeah.
So, I just, if 3.6 is what he's got, I think I would bump it to 3.75 and then we're covered.
Okay.
I was thinking even.
Not to exceed 4.
That's what I was
Well,
thinking.
yeah.
I want to get 3.95, sounds, I don't, you get under that 4, I don't want to say the word 4.
Okay, I think
And
that's,
I think the bigger the project, I think the foot cost might be a little, I don't think it's gonna be Pine Street by no means, I agree with you, but I think
No, because it's more involved.
more involved.
You've got.
But
some
they got a
direction-
lot more
You got some
work
directional
here.
boring, you got
You
some
got, but there's a lot
sidewalk.
more work here they could
A lot
do.
more traffic control.
so 3.9.
Trying to remember what we bonded for the Pine Street, it was a lot higher.
940.
940,
It
that's
was
what
in
the
the
old one
document.
was in the
Oh,
document.
right, of course.
So I'm pretty quick sometimes. When it comes to numbers,
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay.
Okay.
So 3.9, is that what we're agreeing on?
Mhm.
3.9999.
I wanted to go 3.9.
Special.
950.
So point of clarification for me, am I supposed to, were you folks asking me to include the drainage work for Munsell? And is that part of the bond?
No.
So we're not gonna do that even as a contingency?
No.
Right?
No, it would be
Correct.
separate, it would be piggybacked,
Okay.
just.
Because it can't be rolled into the cost.
No, but I,
You'd have to keep track of all separately.
Absolutely.
No,
but I thought we were going to,
that's Eric's deal.
that's Eric's deal,
That's
correct,
Eric's
coming out of Capitol Road, but I thought it was.
Totally separate.
Just like Western.
Well, I thought we were gonna ask the contractor, after who we select.
That's,
Well,
Give
we
us a
can,
price,
but it's
And then
not
if we
gonna
want to
be-
put out the bid.
It's not
Right.
Steve's responsibility.
No, it's not
Right,
Steve's.
right.
I agree.
Thank you for.
Okay,
So-
so there's a motion and a
There's
second.
who,
Right.
who
Who seconded
motioned
that?
and seconded?
I motion.
I second.
Ian second. Any more questions on
And
that?
what was
Yeah.
399?
3.9.
All right.
Wait.
3.950.
3.95 apparently.
95.
That's an extra 50, 500,000, 50,000. Okay, any more
Like it
questions?
too.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All righty.
So this was for the warning, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Was the, were
The
there any?
resolution.
Oh, the
Jessica,
resolution.
did you say?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the warning.
Did I
That's
hear
next.
anything from you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure, 'cause I didn't. hear.
hear you. I was listening.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Have a
Steve.
nice
So
day.
I don't know, doesn't count, you know?
I said aye.
Okay. All right, review and approval of November special town meeting warning for the Bristol Unified Development Regulations Amendment in the Bristol West Lawn Vote. Valerie?
Hang on. So hopefully folks had a chance to look at the language of both the language for the
UDR.
Yeah, the UDR, and then also now this bond. And I modeled them after previous documents, so not reinventing the wheel. The question is, does the language in the UDR amendment capture the current? Still haven't quite gotten my arms around it. So I'm gonna rely
That's
on
okay, you know.
other folks
Have
to
a
say, yes,
discussion too.
that's what.
Yeah, we're good. And we also have the original document that was sent by the planning commission that details all of those.
Yeah, and I did, in this version, I did
a
reference
link
it
to it.
in the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the Article 2
Mhm.
article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's good. It wasn't wasn't a huge amount of changes, but it was some very specific ones, especially around the accessory dwelling units.
I did have someone ask me yesterday, landowner here in town that wants to develop some land. About, did this unified here talk about shrinking the lot size?
Yes.
Mhm.
I thought, I was
Depending
pretty
on
sure, but I didn't want to confirm.
The lot size of what
Depending
they
on the
could,
district.
you mean subdivide
density.
into.
Right,
Yeah.
and
Residential.
and this was, some of this area was on Hewitt Road, changed.
It depends on if it,
We'd have to-
which
we'd have to see what
zone,
district that
what
is.
Okay,
district
I
they're
told
in.
him I don't know about that, but I said there was some stuff, language in it, that the lot size in the HDR area, and
And that's village mixed and, RA 2, I think, on the other side of the road. And then you got commercial right along 116.
yeah, this was up Hewitt Road on the left.
It's not standard.
That person asked me. So, and I said I would find out.
I don't,
I said, we are voting on some new regulations.
they didn't touch any of the RA on this round.
Yeah.
Everything they focused on was in the village plan area, and those harbors are actually just outside of the village plan.
Okay.
area.
All right. Okay, all right. Okay, did I get a motion and?
Well, I have a question on the time, because the old ones started at 7, but lately we've agreed to meet at 6:30. So I just wanted to check in on
So
that.
these are just special meetings for this, or are these a select board
The
meeting too?
November 4th is a special meeting, and October 28th is part of a regular meeting. But then again, the special meeting part of your regular meeting on October could be at 7, if you start at 6:30 and do other stuff ahead of time.
I would just think both the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but which?
7.
7, okay.
I would just
I
leave
don't
it
think
seven.
we're gonna get lots.
Because November 4th, I don't
I
want
don't
to
think
be
we're
here at
gonna
6.
the room ain't gonna flow over. Okay,
Gotcha.
is there, was a motion and second, do we
I'll
have?
make a motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second. Of
Motion
course, with the change in the number there.
Right.
with
Yeah, don't leave
changes.
that 940.
Okay. Any other questions for the motion?
November 4th or November?
November 4th is the info meeting.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
Thank you.
Consider adoption of the proposed Bristol capital improvement plan with or without the adjustments.
Right. So hopefully folks had a chance to glance it over. I did get some feedback, some edits, more typo kind of things rather than substance. As you probably noticed, there's still some sections that are a little bit still in progress. But it's still plenty to work with. So, just to quickly summarize, let's see here. The document relies heavily on existing information, so I took a lot from the town plan highlights and summarized a lot of that relates to capital priorities and needs. And I tried to summarize them here, and they're also captured in one of the appendices in the back and highlighted specifically for capital improvements. And that was really helpful for today's purposes in Montpelier to get the downtown renewal application reviewed. And of course, it passed with flying colors. Yeah, there
The
was
last one we have to do. Huzzah.
the very last one we have to do, but this.
Until they change the rules again.
That's true. But this document clearly shows the town's previous investments in infrastructure that supports the downtown, the economy, the public environment, public transportation, all those good things that support a vibrant downtown. It shows what we're currently doing, and it shows what we intend to do. So in that sense, it's been successful. So it goes through the town plan, summarized recent things that we've done in the last 5 or so years, just to kind of remind us of all the amazing things that have happened over the last few years. It is pretty remarkable. And again, it demonstrates to the downtown board and others, the community, the types of investment that this community has made to really improve quality of life, infrastructure, public health and safety, all those good things. And then this section attempts to describe many of those projects and include recommendations about going forward. So these recommendations are where folks can choose to weigh in at some point. Tonight, though, hopefully we're looking for some final action. So if you have anything in particular to clarify. One thing I learned since doing this draft, and I don't think I updated it, was about the fire station antenna, the communications tower. This draft focuses a lot on the prospect of a Firehouse Drive location, but there might be other locations that might also be worth looking at.
Well,
So
the state's currently working on an upgraded radio communications plan as well, so it might
fall on a change.
Yeah.
yeah, so we could choose to update this document to include other language, or just accept it for today's version and know that it will
Well,
evolve.
this, to me, is an ever-changing document.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever we do, it's gonna constantly be changing.
Yeah, and it acknowledged, I mean, it reflects what was known
At that
last
time.
month. Yeah, not necessarily what was newly known last week. So again, it reviews our existing buildings and some of the things going on there, some of the issues confronting some of our existing buildings. The police department, vehicles, talks about the public works facility, both the current one and some of its deficiencies, and the new one that we're looking forward to. Landfill, dog pound, gravel pit, roads and bridges. On the roads and bridges front, I just want to mention that we received, this is a slight tangent to the town admin report, but we received word last week that our application to the Regional Planning Commission for that study, for the speed study and the truck inventory that was requested by citizens on North Street did not get funded because the regional planning folks felt that they could do that work in-house. And they didn't want to pay somebody to do it. They didn't want to use that limited pot of money to pay somebody to do something that they felt they could do in-house.
Is that why the counter's on
North Street?
Exactly,
Market?
exactly. Yeah, they're doing a traffic count, which will measure the volume, the speed, the axles. It won't identify what types of trucks, where they're going or where they're coming from, but it'll give us a count and an inventory. It'll give us more data than we currently have to work with. And another reason why they didn't fund it was because they felt, okay, so you do this truck analysis, then what? What are your options?
Right.
They didn't feel that it would be cost effective to hire somebody to do all this analysis and then say, there's really nothing you can do. So we're gonna get the data and go from there. Maybe once we have that data, we might become aware of additional steps we can make. But in the meantime, where I'm going with this is, I said, okay, so can we reapply? or do we have to wait till next year? Because if that money is not gonna be gonna be spent, then, you know, it's just sitting there, maybe. And so they actually did reopen the grant program to everybody, but we have until October 7th to submit another application. And what we propose to do is submit an application to do a feasibility study, not a scoping study, a feasibility study to study Harvey Road, which is currently a class 4 road with a 1-lane wooden deck bridge that is now serving a new residential subdivision, the Willow Well Foundation, and the town maintains it. And so what would be involved in upgrading it to a class 3?
It's too bad we couldn't make the developer do that. And put those.
Well, once we have,
things in
yeah,
there.
well, once we have that information about what would be needed to do it and potential costs, then we can decide
A
what,
$5
if,
million bridge.
what, if anything, to do. And well, with the data, we might be able to qualify for some other support. But without it, there's nothing.
Dead in the water.
All I really wanna know is some engineer to tell us, okay, that bridge is weighted for so much,
Right,
what you could put across.
yeah, like a
Well,
fuel
there's
truck.
dump trucks going across.
I
there.
get that,
know,
I get that part.
Mhm.
Concrete trucks and.
I had the very same issue in Waitsfield with a wooden deck bridge. So, yeah, it was complicated. But if it turns out to be feasible and rational to proceed to upgrade it to a class 3, then we can add it to our class 3 road inventory and get money from the state to maintain it, which is not now because it's a class 4. So, and because it's a growing area. And
We only, we figure, correct me if I'm wrong, we only grade it to the bridge.
Don't we grade it to the turnaround?
Do we
Yeah.
grade it to the turnaround? I know when
And-
Libby lived down there, was a little narrow road past her driveway just to get the truck turned around. That was the only.
and there it goes
the
all the way up. And
Oh, yeah, I
turns
know
around,
there's a lot of
yeah,
places
yeah.
up there now.
So, yeah. Things change.
Okay,
So that's related to roads and bridges, and I think I actually did mention that, Harvey Road right there, in there. Sidewalks, I think you know that we did get the grant for the West Street sidewalk scoping study, which is really cool. Excited for that. Stormwater,
speaking of sidewalks, I'd like to see a bid proposal ready to go out to contractors by January 1st.
it's not gonna happen. I can't do it.
I'm disappointed. I mean, I know you're loaded with stuff, Valerie, I get it. But it'll be, if we don't do sidewalks in 2025, that'll be 3 years in a row, we haven't done sidewalks. And, but, I mean, if you give me the old, what you took out the bid, I'll try to work on it over the winter and get something out, at least by contractors in their hand. I throw off his desk by February 1st, so they can say, let's bid on some sidewalks.
Maybe it's possible. I don't know. At this point, I cannot commit. I cannot. I can't keep up with what I've got. So
I guess then I have to ask the question, then what's more important? The capital improvement plan is, but if we keep putting, I mean, we heard it loud and clear, I thought 3 years ago, town meeting, improve the sidewalks in this town. Because they doubled the line item in the capital plan. It just sits there. It doesn't just sit there, but we haven't done sidewalks. It'll be 3 years in a row since we've done sidewalks.
Well, we
If
had
don't do
the
any in 25.
inventory completed, which was a good step. We've gotten to scoping now. Actually, I take that back. We got the grant for a new airport drive sidewalk. So other things are
No,
happening.
I agree, but we get them all done, and then if we're gonna do the airport one, maybe in 26, then we put out a huge one and we get quite a lot done.
Maybe so.
Okay. All right, sorry to get off that, but
And now that this, after tonight, the capital improvement plan, which was, the deadline was for today's downtown board meeting for the downtown renewal. That was the push. That was the priority. It made a huge difference in our approval. And I have to say that the downtown board meeting was quite successful, and there was a lot of love for Bristol. The room was packed. And there was a lot of love for Bristol. So just so you know. And by the way, I think Courtney is doing an awesome job, and her presentation was fantastic. And it was all just so positive, so positive. It was really great.
okay. So you wanna
I make a
Adoption.
motion to accept
Yep.
the capital improvement plan as in its current form.
is there a second?
Second.
There's a
Now
second.
Peter can second it.
Oh, any more questions on that?
I think the only thing that I'd like to point out about these plans is they're a great planning tool, but we have to be careful that they don't become, because it says in the plan, we're going to do X, like, we'll definitely want to revisit these things as they go. So there are certain things in here that I wonder if we need to do all of them at the same time. So I know that we've already said it's a planning tool. I just wanted to put that out there. But
Right.
I just
we'll
want to
use
make
it-
sure it's just
we'll
a
use it as
planning
a
tool.
planning tool and not, well, it's in here, so we have to fund it,
Right.
right? Like I
Well,
just,
no, because to me, this is a work in progress. It's constantly changing,
Right.
evolving document. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not a guarantee.
And
Well-
jumping ahead, for example, the Capital Roads Fund, these tables try to show the phasing, the pacing of these things, not only in terms of internal capacity to actually get things done, but to raise the money for it,
right,
to set the money aside for it. And so hopefully these tables, well, for one thing, a lot of these tables were built upon tables that are already in the town report.
Mhm.
They're already there, so they're based on stuff. And then the stuff that's in yellow, we haven't figured out yet, like
Right.
Briggs Hill Road, we don't know.
right.
Um,
And so I think this is all really great. It's just that we might want to have conversations about what we fund or what we don't.
mhm,
In political science, we call this agenda setting power.
mhm.
And it's actually the biggest power that you have to get things done is to set the agenda.
Right.
So that's all I want to do is just put the word out there that just because it's written in here doesn't mean we have to do it exactly in this order or all
Absolutely.
of these projects.
Absolutely.
But I
not.
do appreciate the planning.
Yeah, without being able to step back and see the big picture of what we're dealing with. And that was my original goal 5 years ago when I started doing this, was
Yeah.
what's the big picture of all this
Mhm.
stuff?
And the
Because
great
I didn't see it. I needed to see it. I'm a visual person. I need to
Yeah.
see it this way. And then what I think is really nifty, I skipped a page there, blank page. How do we get out of there? There we go. So the tables up above are the reserve funds and the general fund and the projects. And then this section is the reserve contributions. And then we have what we know for debt. And then what we might have for debt, we don't really know.
So, well, I just look at that, I see it said sidewalk funds. Do we have 118,669 in that?
So it says,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, and 40 going in every year, just about. But where I'm going with this is, so this is the really nice thing about being able to look at the big picture, is with what we've said we're gonna do in terms of contributing to the capital funds every year. We lay that out, then we do it. Sometimes we add more. I don't think we've ever done less, maybe. And then the debt, what we know of is debt. But you look at the bottom lines and it shows that from a planning perspective, we're achieving stability. That there's no big spikes on the horizon based upon this plan. So it's
not in the general
stable.
fund.
So, I mean, that's one of the objectives of doing something like this, is so that you pace your funding and your internal capacity to make, so that's one of the entire purposes of this whole thing. So.
Okay, I
works
got a
and all.
motion and a second. Any more comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Same? Okay,
Thank you very much.
review of meeting minutes.
No,
Thank
we're
you
not
for
doing
how
that.
worked.
That got changed.
Not a-
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Good night, Steve.
Oh, yes.
It's ours now.
Accounts payable warrant,
not much
any
on there,
liquor
but I
license or
did-
tobacco licenses?
Any,
Michelle's got the folder.
Yeah.
so yes,
There's no liquor license in
Yes,
here.
there is
Is
a
there?
liquor
Okay.
license.
Covers, right? I tried to order a
Covers,
beer there.
yeah,
They're like,
you
no,
can't.
yeah.
I reminded him and reminded him, he
Yeah.
let it expire, so.
But they did tell us, you can't have a beer, you have to come back next week.
Yeah, so I just need a motion that we're beginning, because they're off cycle from the rest of them.
so
Second.
All right.
Does he go have,
I just-
does he go have a beer?
I have to be looking through them, just after I have a question for Jill. Jill, the water inventory, I see Bill was in there. How are we doing with that water inventory?
Yeah.
She's coming.
Oh, she's back.
I pushed the wrong thing. I got two more today. Yes. Pretty good. What I'm trying to do right now is clean up the E911 addresses. So I'm about halfway through that. I only have till October 16th. So we've
I mean, last
got,
time I asked, you were about 85 still that haven't answered you.
It's
Are we
only
down
got,
to-
I'm only down to 83. One person from sharing with the board and everything else and trying to get more people to respond from all the other activities that we've done. Only one person, but I was doing the water read today and I got 2 on North Street. So I know which
Okay.
ones are missing. So if I see somebody home and I'm on their property, you can bet I'm asking. But what I found out from other water systems that I'm running, some are being done by other consultants, etc., is that the state is they're just expecting the first draft to be put in by October 16th, and they want it to continue to be made as complete as possible as we continue to move forward. So we'll have opportunities to continue to update the inventory ongoing. It's expected to be updated and kept current anyhow, and our 2 more major projects, which are the rest of the West and the East, are going to give us an opportunity to continue to interact with people. They're going to want to talk to us because we're going to be touching all their water lines.
Okay.
So anything that we don't know, we'll get more information on, and we'll keep pushing. And we could put another mailer in the September bill if you wanted. I just know there's like
I would.
Yeah.
Contact me or I'm shutting your water off.
No.
Okay.
You sent me the list, Field, and the
Unfortunate.
language, and I haven't reached out to people, so I have about maybe
Yeah.
8 people on the list that I'm gonna reach out to, and I just haven't done that yet. I apologize.
That'd be like a 10% improvement for me if all 8
Okay.
got
Okay.
back. So that'd be
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
So we've approved the warrant and we're signing these.
You have a motion and a second to
We have to
approve the
vote. The liquor
license.
license.
Yeah, I didn't, okay, that's, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Did they have any restrictions that we had to?
Not for covers, no.
Just not outside, right? You have to stay inside.
No, they can do
Yes.
Oh, they won't let me
I
take
know.
my beer.
No, I don't think so.
No, so they don't have it roped off.
He doesn't pay for the outside.
Oh,
license, so
okay.
he can, they can.
Did
only
you get all of
I
those?
just thought it was
Oops, no,
because
I'm
he
sorry.
thought it caused problems. I could just
Okay.
say it.
Well, I mean, there's that.
Oh, select board roundtable. Jessica, you first?
So I'm going to get an update from the rec department. They wanted to wait until after the new person had started. For the library, they are trying to hire for the children's librarian position. And is there anything else? Oh, I also sat in on the equity committee meeting. And I think some of my students are going to help them run some focus groups and surveys to collect information.
Yeah, speaking of
That's it.
library children, saw a lot of comments on Front Porch Forum. What happened there?
Oh, the children's librarian had resigned, and then wanted to rescind the resignation. And the library director decided to accept the resignation.
Okay,
So
I just saw it.
Yeah.
Blood there.
You know, it's a new director, and I just think that there were different styles of working. And so, you know, just a new person with new roles, and I think that can be challenging. But the former children's librarian has also applied for the position.
Okay, I just looked, I saw a lot of.
Yeah,
Front
yeah.
Porch Forum.
Well, you know, people love the library, people love the children's library, and like, we spend a lot of time there, you know?
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
Not for me.
Ian?
I just wanted to do, so I've been working on this project management system and sort of testing it myself, and I've been also testing it with Frida as well. And I just wanted to just do a quick screen share and show you it. And it's not a direction that I'm suggesting, but I wanted to sort of make you aware of it, and just get your thoughts maybe quickly. Let's see if I can do that here. Okay, so the idea, the thing I struggle with most is that we have so many things going on that the select board is involved with, and so much of it is based on our meetings, and then it gets lost. There's not a lot on the town website. I keep pretty detailed documents myself, but then I'm still asking a lot of questions of staff members in the town. So the idea is to get one central place that we would have that's not on OneDrive, that's not on Dropbox, that's not on the website, where any number of people could access it with their own permissions to be able to see what's going on. So I looked at a number of different project management software. Basecamp has been around for decades. It's very popular. I used it many years ago. It's changed over time, but it's one of the simplest systems. It's not too expensive. It's on a per user basis. You can have users that belong to the organization that pay for it, which would be the town of Bristol. And you can also then add people outside of that, that you are allowed to be used, like clients that are free to be able to use it. So that saves us some money. So you could set it up where just maybe department heads have a user account, perhaps other members of staff have their own just as a client, or you could have it where board members for, let's say, the Energy Committee or the Planning Commission could have access to it, and they can create files, comment, but they don't necessarily count as a user, and that's something we have to pay for as a town, which is nice. Because Val was working on the capital improvements plan,
Sorry.
that's okay. At the same time, I've sort of based the overall management of it around that. And so sort of looking at it, it's a web app. So you go to a website, use it. You can also have a desktop app. It's on your phone as well. And it's always the same. And essentially you have a main system here, and every one of these is a project. Projects that are grouped together are in stacks. So a lot of these are already stacked into something bigger. The townwide reappraisal, I don't have an area where I'm putting that yet. So I've broken it down based on your capital improvements plan. So the capital road projects, capital sidewalks, Holly Hall, Lawrence Memorial Library, and then by departments, police department, public works. And then within each one of these, there are separate projects. So if we look at the library, these are the projects that are happening at the library. So there's the outdoor program area that we're going to talk about at the next meeting. There's various upgrades to do with the grant that we're still waiting to hear for, the porch replacement. So each one of these could be its own project, and then you can jump into that. And within the project, you have the same layout for every single project that you do. You have a message board, so you can talk about the project back and forth. You could set up to-dos. You can connect documents and files, both shared from OneDrive or Dropbox or Google, or you can upload the files. You can set schedules, you can chat. You can also forward emails to various things, so stuff isn't lost in an email chain.
So we would hold all the emails in.
Correct. You need to, with the email system, every project can have its own unique email address that you could forward something to, so it gets captured. Or you could use a single email address and you send it off, and then you get an email back and says, hey, what project do you want to connect this to? So there's a couple ways to do it. But the idea is that these would live here for the length of the project and then can be archived. If you ever needed to go back, they're right in there. Everything's collected together.
And I have one more question for
Sure.
the to-dos. Can you assign those to other people
Yes.
too? Oh,
So anybody that's a user or a client or however you want to set them up, you can assign to-dos to. And so when you're looking, sorry for me to see, I know something like, there we go. When you're looking at the top here, you've always got your home, which takes you back to the main page, but you have various things here. Hey, sort of the information that's happening. Because I set up a schedule for a select board meeting that's on there, it's going to tell me these are the various things that have happened over time. Just recently, you know, you have your activity, and this is what's happened today. I loaded, Sharon sent the details of the heat pump quote for this, so I added it to the Holly Hall, that project, the Merck Holly Hall HVAC, so that's there. So it's just a way to be able to capture things. It's obviously, it's a learning curve, but it's one of the simplest learning curves. I've looked at other project management software, which is far more complex. And this allows us to sort of design it how we might look at the capital improvements project, since that's our sort of guiding document, and be able to tie it in nicely. So, you know, jumping around, we've got Capitol Roads, Briggs Hill, Basin Street. So any one of us could have login information. We have our own accounts, we have our own permissions. Maybe some things we don't see because we don't need to, and it's just internal to the town employees. Other things, you know, that if you had a question about Briggs Hill, you could jump into this and the documents or discussion might be here. So that's all I wanted to show. I'm sort of working through it. I'm gonna, because I'm on a trial, it's gonna run out of time in 3 days. So I might just pay it myself, just maybe to do another month. It's month to month. But the idea would be if we can get enough people using this to sort of see if it's gonna work for us, then we might graduate to it and actually pay.
How much is it a month?
That's $15 per user. So we might have maybe 10 users, that would be the employees. And then everything outside of that would be a client, which is a free connection. It's the free doesn't allow you to create master projects and things like that. But for a lot of these, including select board members or other board members for committees, you don't really need that. You would just need a core group of people that would need that.
Is that $15 per person per month?
Correct. And it's on a monthly. There is a higher plan, but I don't think we need to go to that because it ends up
Seems
being
high
pretty
enough.
expensive. Yeah,
But
Take
then
you
how
in.
many users you have?
Well, he said 10, that'd be,
Right.
yeah,
you're talking $1,800 a year.
correct. But the idea is that you'd have a place that anybody could go to be able to see what's going on at any moment in time. And that all depends on us using it too.
Anybody that was.
A user, correct. It's not a public site, it's, you have to log in to be able to see it. And you can set your permission. So if there were projects that you weren't involved with, you wouldn't see them, but the ones that you are, you would be. So Holly Hall, we have, various things. And again, it's all connected to that capital improvements project, sort of breaking them down. And I've been the library police department, we've got the building, some upgrades that Bruce was talking about in terms of technology. And then you could even have, since we also deal a lot with personnel, you could have sections within departments about personnel if you wanted to sort of capture information about that. And it's a way to sort of help us remember all these things because we're dealing with so much, both select board members as well as town employees.
It seems like it would also be good for grant writing to be able, for Frida to be able to access
Yes.
these documents.
And that's why I shared it with her initially, because she's involved in so many overlapping projects and it's all driven by what she's doing, hopefully to get grant money for these. That's why I invited her, because she's experienced with this and then can sort of give feedback and she picks up things very quickly.
Now, is there, right there, I see 11 things. over
Yeah.
there. But if that doubled,
Yeah,
is that more money?
no,
Okay, it's still, it's based on the person
correct.
per month, not on how many.
Yeah, and I can give a breakdown
So-called
and I'll dig
iPad
into that and give a
podcast
breakdown. If we decide that we like using this and it seems like we're actually, saving time and research, be able to use this, then we can present a plan to see how much it would cost. And it's month to month. So if we do a year or 6 months and we decide it's too complicated, it's just getting in the way, then you can just stop and we figure out something else. So that's what I wanted to share.
And for for the different folders, like water department, for
Yeah.
example, can you choose something that could be open to anyone, like the public, or that would link to the website? Or is this meant to be purely internal?
I think it's purely internal. I have to look at that to see what sending it out to the public, because it would be nice for certain projects to
Right.
be able to have those documents available. I mean,
Right.
usually we would put them on the website, but that sort of always falls behind. We start off by putting the project there and then it doesn't get updated, just because we're sort of doing it internally. But I
But we
can
could
look at
always
that.
put a link on the website to
Correct.
this, and then they would be able to see all the public facing documents.
Yes, yeah, potentially. So I have to look at
Okay.
that. So that's what I've been working on.
It may
so-
be helpful, especially with Bristol West.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
To have, or just for us to be, Steve's presentation, hopefully we'll get the document from him tomorrow. It could be right there. And so all of us, if we were using this, would know,
Just check.
oh, we can just go into here, we can go to water department, we can see Bristol West. I've already started to put, so this was just, I created a message about this particular item this evening. And then within the message, you can just attach PDFs. And so all the details are there.
Right.
So instead of having to go to the website and find documents for our particular meeting, this would be its own message entry.
Mhm.
And you can jump back at any time to different sections within, and these are all sort of customizable. If we never use chat, we can take that off and it doesn't have to appear in any project. Check-ins can be things that are automatically, one of the nice things with check-ins is that you can schedule things. So if we had let's say it's a personnel item for Public Works Department, we could schedule the check-in a year from now or 6 months when it's someone's time, if they've completed certain stipulations of their contract of hiring. A check-in could be a good thing, instead of us saying, what was so-and-so's, what did he have to complete before he got bumped up by a pay scale? That could be in here, in the personnel section of that area, so.
This is really good for turnover too, to keep
Yes,
everything in one place.
because it keeps,
Right.
everything is within one area.
Right.
So yeah, I'll keep working on this, and then you might see communication from me to sort of test it out, just in different areas to see what people think.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay, Michelle?
I don't have much. I do want to thank Bruce and his officers because I know The parking up on Briggs, the beginning of Briggs Hills was a real problem this past weekend.
Yeah.
So I see.
Crazy.
I was like, God, people are lazy because there is a parking lot right across the road and they choose to park right in the road. But yeah, I see they put up signs, so I appreciate that. Other than that,
Okay, Peter?
I can probably make the school board meeting tomorrow night if nobody.
That would be helpful, yeah.
Roll
Yes.
back to
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's, and
Small
it's,
cafeteria or large?
No,
It's a
library.
library.
Library, okay.
yeah, and it's gonna be the first thing, and there are 3 candidates.
Okay.
Thank you, that'd be great.
Is that it, Peter?
I'll let Aaron know you're coming.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a couple of things. I still see the tree. I saw 2 people in there this weekend, Barney Cemetery. Tree is still cleaned in there. Like to see that done.
The
How's the,
corn's gone around there now. too,
yeah,
so
how's the Lincoln Road project coming?
Last I heard last week, they had moved on to the lower site and expect to have it completed by the end of the week.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Great.
that it's coming along really well.
And speaking of your emails, and you brought this up before, Ian, about the board having a
Yeah.
personal email versus select board email.
Yeah.
I got an email from a resident in town on my personal one last week. I sent it off to Addison County Solid Waste Manager. They knew I was, I guess, the board representative to the solid waste. Didn't know how they knew it. Maybe they looked on the town website. But it was about food scraps now can't be in plastic bags anymore, can't be in liners. And I didn't know that either. I sent it off to Terry and Don and they answered that, so.
What about the compostable bags? I mean, I have
Foster
compostable
Brothers-
bags.
No, so I think they've scrapped those because
Yeah,
the amount of heat that the compost actually requires to break those down.
They're not
You need like
breaking
an
down.
industrial.
Yeah,
So you
so,
can have it in that, but then dump it in
Then-
without the bag.
My
I
office,
asked-
my office uses them, so I don't know what they're doing.
and then I asked a month ago or so, I guess, we got the report on what happened, how it happened, was he going to call the police department?
We have not been able to connect.
Okay.
Schedules just haven't aligned.
And then my last question is, when, like, if my water meter was replaced, it broke, it doesn't read anymore, is that a cost again to me or not? Mine doesn't need it, but another customer got billed. And he said, we've had a water meter for years, now we got billed for a new water meter.
I don't know who you're talking about.
It
Well,
would have
we'll
had
do
to
the postage.
be, it would have had to be because the customer allowed it to freeze or break.
Okay, I will find that out then.
Otherwise, it's part of the system to replace the meters. It's the
Yeah.
system meter.
They would have
Okay.
had to either cause it to break or they would have had to like have disassembled and broken it, basically.
And I haven't sent any recent bills, so.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Oh, and if it's a new customer, that's part of a new customer's cost is the water
No,
meter.
this is a longtime customer.
Okay, yep.
They asked, why'd they get $1,000 bill? I go, I don't know. If you had a new water bill or new water meter, if you got one for a new home, you have to pay it. If you've had one for years, then yeah, and they just replaced it. My plumber put it in and he said, we got $1,000 bill. So I said, I will find
Their
it.
plumber put it in?
Yeah.
Their plumber put it in and their plumber charged.
Yeah,
them.
right.
No, it said it came from the town.
The only bills that
Recently?
went out for 1,000 were new services.
Okay, all right, I'll find out some more information.
Yeah. find
And
out
speaking
more
of
information.
charges, how are we doing with the water? People who are supposed to on Lawson Lane and the West Pleasant Street repair that got done last year? Are they paying some money? Are they getting
The
bills?
Lawson Lane, they haven't paid anything yet.
They were given 2 or 3 different options, quarterly, every 6 months or once a year. And so we're
I haven't
coming.
seen any money that I know of.
And then there was one done, was it last summer, maybe the summer before on West Pleasant Street?
I don't know which one you're talking about. There's a new service on.
I will say, I'll tell you after meeting, I don't like it.
Okay.
Okay? So,
But do we need to follow up then with, like, send new bills for?
Or reminders,
Awesome.
it's
Okay.
on my tickler.
Okay.
all right, okay, Valerie, you're up, town administrator's report.
Nothing to add to the town admin report other than what I've already shared with you in the course of the meeting and just draw attention to some of the correspondence, the letter from the police union representative.
Yes.
Alerting us that the negotiations are for the police union.
Yes, you guys
contract
put your little hats
are
on, somebody
coming up.
decide. I did it last time, so I'm bowing out.
Yeah, too much fun.
I'm going to school board meeting.
Yes, one night. You
don't care.
You don't get a pass.
Coincidentally, last week we received two completely separate communications from citizens concerned about the Varney Cemetery condition and the trees, the condition of the stones and a lot of that. So I was able to let them know that we are aware of it, that we are taking steps to remove the trees and improve the cemetery.
And Mark actually took pictures that he sent us.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, Peter sees it every day goes by. You know, I see it.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Is that it? Other business correspondence reports?
She just
That
talked
was
about
kind of an
that.
overlap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
do have one thing is, I asked last meeting to get on the agenda for my water,
Oh,
and that's all right. But, when my attorney starts sending the deed that over, do we send that to Kevin Brown or what?
The deed for what?
For the water lines that you guys will know after they get installed.
Are they, is their attorney creating it or is
Yeah, that's
Kevin
right.
creating it? Was that the decision that was made? So the easements, you're talking about the easements.
Kevin Brown has created an easement that was for the J Drive.
Right.
And the concept was that it would be
Used for the.
adaptable to the others,
Mhm.
and so we do have that.
Okay. So is that something we're gonna do for them or is that his attorney taking that?
That's a good question. I haven't had a chance to even look at it yet, so I don't know how
Entailed is
how
gonna be.
adaptable it is.
I haven't looked at it either, so.
Yeah, so I don't know yet.
I just wanna check and make sure that. we-
I know I drafted it.
And then,
You can check with her.
I will.
and then, so my last question is, it's a correspondent from me. The land that I bought has an easement over it for a water line that goes to Plank Road.
Hmm.
And Jill informs me now, and I knew it anyway, that now that residence on Plank Road is being serviced by the Plank Road, a 6-inch main.
Mhm.
So that easement can go away.
I think you need an attorney to extinguish it.
Well, I need a letter from the town.
I don't think the town's involved.
If there's an easement out
There
there,
it is
an
right
actual
there.
easement, you probably have to do a quick claim deed extinguishing that
That's what
easement.
we have to do with used to have to do with the utility
Right.
easements, if we gave them up, you have to actually do a document.
A quick claim deed
Yeah.
to relinquish the.
Okay, I'll
easement.
tell my attorney. And that's all I have for correspondence. Thank you.
I apologize, Joel, about your,
That's all right. I didn't,
that and a couple other things kind of slipped by. Happens.
Kevin mailed it off for $2,000 to the state, so it's all ready to come back. And Max, Greta and I are hopefully in the middle of October, put the new water line in.
So are we doing executive session?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We have a few things.
Okay, Marcel, you'd like to
I
read
thought I
that?
remembered that.
I make a motion that we enter into executive session for 1 VSA section 303 to discuss personnel.
Personnel, yeah, and I believe Bruce may want to join in if he's still.
Okay, and we invite Bruce to attend.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor?
Good night, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Good night, Chris. Good night,
Thanks,
Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, Jimmy, thank you.
No, it's
All
Chris.
those opposed, going in, abstain, okay, we are in.